Fagan, the leading ball carrier for Illinois with 42 coming in. Here's another pass, and the receiver wide open. It's caught. Touchdown by Pat Bryant. An impressive drive by Bryant. Got separation from Tommy Hill, and he had 2 steps on him, and Altmaier put it out there perfectly, and this crowd is quieted.
Yeah, so much for the premise of playing behind, just winning off the line of scrimmage. Not sure what T. Hill saw. He got spun around and almost seemed to quit on the play.
1st and 10, Nebraska. The ball spotted at the Illini 11-yard line. 23 seconds remaining. Nebraska 2 timeouts left. Ramir Johnson is the tailback. He goes in to a pass pattern, and Rola is going to throw it to the end zone. It's caught. Is it a touchdown? Yes.
How about those receivers? Maybe Coach McGuire's back to being a good coach again. The interception, we had some doubts. The touchdown reception, he's good again.
Isaiah Nair makes the catch in traffic on the near side of the end zone and makes the grab. Thomas Fedoni was over there, a trio of Illini, and it's Nair who makes the touchdown grab.
Hey, you want to be challenged by your coach? Go make a play.
Here we go. 2nd down and goal, beg your pardon, at the 1. The pitch is to Janiron Bonner, and he takes it to the right side, into the end zone. Touchdown.
Boy, Coach sat in his bag, airing it out after the long Illinois drive. And he told us, right? If we need to score in the 4th quarter, we 100% can do that.
Fagan is the tailback. And it's Altmaier who wants to keep it. He flips the pass to a lineman who has come into the ball game. And I believe that's Brandon Henderson, who's a backup left tackle. And he comes into the game in short yardage situations. And they put a jersey on him without a name on it, number 94. And that's indeed who caught the pass out of the backfield.
Yeah. Hat tip. Well done. It's taking advantage of Nebraska's eye discipline. And listen, that's a big kid.
4th down and 29. Emmett Johnson is the setback. You've got 3 Huskers wide to the right side. Rola, he's got it. Pressure right up the middle, and down he goes, and that'll do it. Illinois has come to Lincoln and shocked the Huskers. 31-24 in overtime. Illinois has won it.
I mean, Dylan was like, "Hey, we were gonna take a shot the first play, and we false started. So kind of just, we false started, and then, took a sack, and then, even on the last one, we missed a blitz pick, we missed a protection. We had an MA, so the moment it showed up, and we didn't make the plays you have to make to win those games. Even the ball that they called a touchdown that was ended up being an interception. We had a lot of opportunities to win the game, and so we're not a bad football team. It's a good football team. It's a ranked team, and we had all of our we had the chances we had to win. So there's some things we have to correct, and getting those moments we have to kind of go make those plays. Make those plays. I thought Sack called an excellent game. We had lots of chances, and I think defensively we have to go back and kind of look and see, hey, were we doing the right things?
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
All right, good morning, everybody. It is a Monday. It smells like pumpkin in the air. Fall has arrived. Look at all of us. I think we all are we
have the uniform.
Hoodie we are the fall Nebraska wardrobe, hoodie and shorts.
Yep. Yes.
Oh, it has finally arrived.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. I saw 50 degrees when I woke up. I'm like, oh, yeah.
But it's way too cold outside.
What?
Oh, it is really cold.
No.
This is 86 in his house.
It was cold. I mean, it was cold in my house.
Oh, was it down to 79?
I like the crispness of this time of the year. But it's a little bit too chilly too early. we need to back it up a little bit. Like I just want a little brief I like in the mornings where I can wear the hoodie and the shorts. But then let's get back into the mid-80s.
Then shed the hoodie when you get home.
Maybe let's touch like 91 sometime this week.
That happened Friday then. So Friday's your ideal thing where it's cool in the morning, then it just heated up.
It was a dry heat, too.
Yeah.
Last cool day before they closed it.
It's fall, so, I mean, what I'm told is when it's fall, it's supposed to be like this. So here we go. Don't worry, there'll still be some golf rounds to be played.
But everything is changed. It's like global warming. Everything's backwards now. Things arrive later than normal.
Yeah.
I just don't want us to skip straight from summer into like winter.
Yeah, well,
Agreed.
yeah.
Okay.
I think we could all agree on that.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. It is a Monday. For some, it is a victory Monday. For
Was there
others,
football yesterday?
Jeez.
You had a rough weekend.
Actually, everybody lost.
Everybody's good.
Actually, that BYU K-State game did heal
not
me a little.
Not everybody lost.
Not everybody lost.
Did you not stay up last night?
Was there a game last night?
Yeah, I waited all day for Sunday night.
That's what they tell me.
I was enthralled
gave up on the game.
I was enthralled by the Kirk Cousins show.
Yeah, well,
who's the other team?
You pay a guy a lot of money. I think he could just fall forward 18 inches. But I'm no play caller. I don't try and be a genius on the radio. The last play. Oh my god. Oh my god. But welcome in, everybody. We are off and running on a Monday. Lots to discuss. Oh boy. It is Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well. I got 4 words to say.
4.
Same game, same result.
Okay.
Now, I want to start this way because I think it's important to do this. I was wrong. I admit it.
Same.
Sorry,
Bert.
I'm not going to speak for you guys. You guys can do it on your own.
Okay.
But I was wrong. I wondered aloud all last week how Illinois would score 14 or more.
Mm-hmm.
I said Nebraska would win and cover. And then Friday unfolded. And, of course, that did not happen. But I also did not expect the woes of one side of the ball to seriously handicap Nebraska. Now, I don't want to approach this because this is like the 4th show I've done since the game. But here,
so it probably feels like a while ago.
But here's the thing: after the loss on Friday night, and again, I was wrong. I didn't know how Illinois would score 14. Well, they scored 31, and you saw how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is I didn't think the defense would struggle as much as they had, and I think for one of the first times since Matt Rule's been the head coach at Nebraska, his vibe during the week was not even close to the vibe that his football team gave off. I think his vibe was, we're ready to play. This is who we are. We're going to be physical. And that was a football team, and I'm going to include the whole team here, that went out there and was not as physical, was sloppy, was undisciplined, and I thought kind of maybe had been listening to all of the noise about them from the Joel Klatts and the local people and the pats on the back, and F around, F out. And that's what happened on Friday night. But it's curious as you like, now you're a couple of days further away. If you have the same reaction that you did on Saturday morning or late Friday night that you have on Monday morning of what happened in that game, how you feel about that game. Because it's been a cross-section of, season is over, frauds, or like me, a little bit of both. Illinois played really well.
I agree.
Illinois played the best game that they'd played all year, and I'm going to validate that with the director of football operations at Illinois is a friend of mine. I texted him after the game. I said, nice win. Enjoy, safe flight back to Champaign. He goes, that's the best we played all year, but we knew we were going to play that way. And I was like, They played a really solid game where they never panicked. They controlled the clock. They were more physical. And in the second half, they kind of took the football game over and they won.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, I look at Nebraska from Friday night and I would say, gosh, was that we got beat by a better team or did we beat ourselves? And that's why I say same game, same result. You give credit to Illinois, but then you look in the mirror and you go, man, we left a lot out there. That was not our identity that played on Friday night, and we paid for it.
I would start by also saying I was way off, and I'll start with one individual in Luke Altmaier because the whole boy, he's a different quarterback than he was a year ago. And you saw the numbers leading into the game would tell you that was the case. But then you're also thinking, okay, going into that venue, going up against a defense like that. It's really going to test him. This is where I think what stood out to me the most was Illinois looked more prepared for a lot of those situations, and Luke Altmaier especially. And I think that first drive alone, where you're going into a game, you're going into a environment that I think Illinois showed that they were excited to play in. I think that you feel confident with the plan. Like you said, you talked to the guy in the director of football ops there.
Hello, Pat.
Hi, Pat. Not Pat Bryant. Also, good game. We like what we think we can do against this defense. We saw some things even a week ago against Northern Iowa that we think we can exploit. And in the first drive alone, you get Nebraska in some miscommunication situations. And again, if it's validated that early, the amount of confidence. I mean, look at what Altmaier is doing after that touchdown and that scoring drive. I mean, he's barking over at the Nebraska sideline. They were full of confidence. I think they understood that they did have a plan. The RPO game was great. The quick passing game. That was another thing that we saw against when Nebraska played Northern Iowa that they were doing to kind of keep Nebraska, to limit the ability to rush and get pressure. Like, there was just a lot of good things about his game and that quick passing game, and being able to use his two best receivers like he did with Brian and Franklin. Just so much about what Luke Altmaier in that offense. I'll give credit. I had to write his name down just because honestly I didn't know much about him. But Barry Lunny, the offensive coordinator, Looney, called a great game. I thought that they were more prepared in a lot of those situations. And this is where I think the conversation over the weekend is been a lot about where we sold a bill of goods on this defense as far as how dominant they could be. I still think this is a very good Nebraska defense, but are they dominant? I think we can all maybe step back from that a little bit. But this is also where I think it's easy to look at what Nebraska got gashed on and the things that they didn't do well defensively before you even want to look at Illinois and say, tip of the cap to you guys. Because between quarterback play, running back, and the receivers they had, and really from a protection standpoint too, they didn't need to protect Luke Altmaier that much because I think he was very good in and out of the pocket. But again, that quick passing game, everything that they wanted to do offensively connected so well. It struck me as a team that was much more prepared for this moment on Friday.
It looked like a Brett Bielema team.
Yep.
Who is 4-5 at Illinois against ranked teams. I mean, digest that one for a moment. When you look at, Matt Rule, his record against ranked teams, Nebraska's record against ranked teams, Bielema, they played a Bielema game. And they did a lot of things that Nebraska strives to be, or actually was last year when they went to Champaign. That's why I still think there were guys on the defensive side of the football that were thinking pretty good. Last year, 120-7. Now we got 15 that's pulling the trigger. We're going to be okay. And the reality is, I think they're still a good football team. Okay. If you can't see progress through 4 games in certain areas of that football program, then I'm sorry, I'm going to send you Kugler vision. Okay, they'll take care of your eyes. But probably our fault, fan base fault, national media fault. And the reality is, we fast forwarded to where this team, can go from middle to scratching the surface of an upper tier team. There's still a middle team that has to deal with success and has to deal with adversity and has to show up to play every game, or some flaws that were already there that we knew about get exposed when a team that is across from you is prepared and plays hard and plays smarter football than you did. Now, with all that said, I keep going back to, with that, what Illinois did, Nebraska was their own worst enemy. I have no idea what happened on defense. Undisciplined, sloppy, the penalties, just the confusion, the stuff at the goal line, which, it's one of those things where I think it'll be an uncomfortable week in Lincoln, and I'll be very curious today when Matt Rule speaks what his tone and body language is like, because Friday night he almost looked like he was shocked.
And I think there's a lot of that from, again, going back to how they handled that offense a year ago with a lot of the same people, and how Illinois could have such an upper hand, again, with a lot of their same people too. And this is where I go back to a week ago of we were trying to make of what we saw from the defense, because here's another thing. If people were paying attention, Northern Iowa against Hawaii, if they failed to rush for 100 yards against Hawaii.
Yeah. That's
200 yards total offense.
That's a red flag.
And so it was explained again from the head coach after that game and it wasn't like he dismissed it as none of these things are issues. And I think behind the scenes, I think they were at least addressing them the way that they should. And that's the other thing about this whole thing, and I'll get to later about Matt Rule, is at least you have a guy that I think is going to address these things. But going back to that.
Can he address in-game stuff?
Well, and that's another good question about that too. But the thing about Northern Iowa and that whole game was, at the end of every conversation about it, was we still held them to just a field goal. We still were able to, I don't know, he didn't say it, but we said it. They still covered. If that was a natural sort of hangover from the juice that they brought against Colorado, okay, maybe we see that a lot more in college athletics. But now what we realize is, okay, there were some things about that game that are a little bit eyebrow-raising as far as this defense and how good we thought it is compared to how good it currently is right now. And the miscommunication things, this was interesting. I want to say this was mid-second quarter, and Nebraska actually got off the field. But you could tell this defense, they were just so out of sync when it came to communication. We saw the Sean Singleton and Tommy Hill conversation after the first touchdown, and they just looked like they were trying to figure out who had what went wrong there. But also there was a moment, and it was never really explained. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it that much afterwards. And if you were watching the broadcast, you would have seen it that there was Ty Robinson and Jamari Butler were kind of getting into it on the sideline where John Bullock had to break them up. And this was when Nebraska actually got off the field and held Illinois to a punt. So again, that just leads me to believe that there were things communication-wise. This isn't like, oh no, there's inner turmoil. But in the game, I just think, and we can credit Illinois again for frustrating Nebraska, but you have two of your more veteran guys, one who is a captain of this team, one of your oldest players right there too, is having frustrating moments where they're venting on the sideline. And I'm not saying that that's a huge red flag, but that is just another example to me of where the communication breakdown and how this Illinois game plan and what they were unable to do defensively to stop it was really getting to this team. And for a coaching staff on that side of the football, like Tony White, that I think typically they do a good job of making adjustments at a halftime, doing things that are, okay, we saw what they're throwing at us. We weren't maybe able to make those quick adjustments, but at halftime, let's get to the lab real quickly and be able to do something. There wasn't a lot of that either. And so
they played hard. I mean, that's the credit to Illinois. They played hard.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska looked unprepared. And I know they weren't unprepared. They put in a game plan. I just think on that side of the ball, where that's the side of the ball where you're supposed to be a strength, and if your offense is going to score 24, you're going to win a football game,
mm-hmm.
is their stars didn't show up.
Yeah.
The true star on that defense that showed up was 5. Mm-hmm. John Bullock showed up.
He's just having a great
year. Next best player was, and this is a good development for Nebraska, Sierra Wright.
Yep.
Sierra Wright was really, really good. I mean, he looked like a guy that had much more confidence than he ever did at the tail end of his career at USC. He was sticky in coverage. He was a hitter. He was around the football. He made a difference. He made more positive plays than negative plays, but your stars on defense didn't show up when you needed them. Okay. And also they didn't answer. Illinois did a great job of answering all night long on the road. When you come out and for the second straight week, you put Nebraska defensively on their heels on the opening drive.
Yep.
I mean, to drive down the field and put the ball in the end zone. And then on the other end, to stop a lengthy Nebraska drive and it only elicits a field goal, man, you're thinking, we're in this football game.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second half, you just take over and you lean on them, and it's nothing real fancy. We're going to run the football and bam, 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 5-7. And the next thing you know, you're in the shadow of the goal line. You run one of the goal line plays that apparently Nebraska defensively on Friday night had never seen before, because Illinois in the shadow of the goal line was really, really good. And, you got beat. You got beat. And you tip your cap to Illinois, but then you go, God, what was that? What was that?
And that's what I think we're kind of left to grapple with this entire week leading up to Purdue, because you got a great opportunity against a Purdue team that can't stop the run, a Purdue team that is having their own struggles. But is this a good thing for the defense, or are they in their own head offensively? For the most part, again, this is where it's easy to look at the things that weren't done offensively, but then you look at, okay, going back to something you brought up earlier, if you haven't seen improvement of this team in the first 4 games in certain areas, need to get LASIK or something. You look at Dylan Raiola. Still, that game overall, what he did, especially at times when he was under duress, still shows that there is such an improvement at that position and what he can do, especially on third down and some of the passes that he completed under duress. I mean, there is a difference about him. There's no question. The offensive line, obviously, with the Turner Corcoran injury now, that's a problem. But I'll give Gunnar Gattuso some credit. For the most part, he played in the circumstances, I think, okay. But there's just how you want to run the football. And especially in the Big Ten, like we know this is something that we saw it last year too. In the Big Ten, when you have to run the football, can you say, hey, this is a situation where we got to be able to run the football? Do you believe that they know exactly who they want in each situation? That was another thing about Illinois, where they put guys in certain positions, especially when they were using their running backs. It always seemed like they were putting guys in the right situation. I still wonder about Nebraska when it comes to how they use their running backs. Can they, if they need to run the football in a 3rd and 4 situation, against UTEP, you had no problem doing that. Against Illinois, in 3rd and 4, as opposed to going for the home run, again, decent play design, but is that what you want to do with possibly 2 cracks at it there? There's that question of when Nebraska needs to run the football, can they do that? Because there are going to be games that they have to. This weekend, they're going to have an opportunity to do that. Do you trust that they can run the football, and do you trust that they can stop teams running the football against them? I mean, that's a model in the Big Ten, and right now I don't know if that's the case.
I mean, that's something to be probably not this weekend that you'll see if they've fixed. It'll be the following weekend when they play Rutgers.
Yep. There's a lot about this is the other thing that I the penalties and that sort of exudes a sloppiness, undisciplined, and I think all of those things matter. I do think it, because I was watching a little bit of that USC. Well, not I watched that game, but I was watching a little bit of the Iowa-Minnesota game as well. Again, there are teams, and you're going to see this in college football. You know this, better than anybody. There are teams that you can have those moments with penalties and some undisciplined plays, but good enough teams are going to overcome that. It's not going to define who you are. If you're a good team, those penalties are going to hurt you. If you are a great team, you've got enough stops in you defensively, you got enough plays in you offensively, and then the other phase, which I'm sure we'll get to many times, is special teams. All those things you're able to overcome. Hell, even in 2018, when Nebraska got off to the 0-6 start, remember how heavily they were penalized that season. By the end of the year, they kind of had cleaned that up. That's the part of this game that I know a lot of people were sort of red flagging this. At least some of the people that I was interacting with on social media. Yeah,
by the way, the Colorado fans are back.
Oh, I'm
social
sure.
Media.
Oh, especially after their big triumph.
I welcome all of you that are going to jump on the stream in 1620 today and are in my mentions or have emailed me. Glad to have you Colorado fans back.
Yeah. There was part of me. I got to say I was a big Baylor fan at the end when that didn't happen, but
can't look away from Colorado.
There's something you don't say too often.
Did watch that game, but yeah, like it was just a combination of all of that things between the penalties, but then the miscommunication defensively, the situations that you're, whether you want to run the football or go to the pass, like just a lot of things that's accumulated that you're left thinking, what was that? What did I just see on Friday night? And what is something that I should be overly concerned about right now? And what is just, I give Illinois credit. And I think there are some issues defensively, but I don't think all of a sudden this is a bad defense.
Here's the thing. Nebraska's still a good football team. All right. The season is not over. And we'll find out, can Illinois be consistently do what they did on Friday night? Can they do it during the course? They got a tough 4-game stretch. And my God, they're a 17.5-point underdog at Penn State this weekend. Nebraska's still a good football team, but we fast forwarded them. I mean, they're a middle of the pack team that we want to scratch towards the upper tier. Now, I never bought into 7-0. That became a familiar theme.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stop that because one of my hesitations coming into the season was, of course, in-game clock management, which reared its ugly head again, and the fact can Nebraska deal with success. We found out, guys that normally would play well didn't show up.
Isaac Gifford.
Just a weird vibe all around on a Friday night game. And on the defensive side of the ball, which that's your veteran side, guys didn't show up. And I don't know if there's something going on with personnel, scheme a little bit different, or just, hey, we were feeling good. They might look back at this and say, thank you, Illinois, in a month or so. But they got some things to figure out on a defensive side of the ball. And Rhule's comments after the game, and he was already, he dipped his toe into helping out the defense in the offseason with some things. His comments about, are we running the right stuff for our personnel?
Yeah.
Ooh. We might need a follow-up on that today on what exactly he meant and where we're going on the defensive side of the football. Because I just did not see that coming. You could convince me that Nebraska would scuttle a little bit on offense. Special teams are special teams. Fix the kicking. Fix the kicking. I got a T-shirt on the way that says fix the kicking, but not defense. And that's why I think that loss is more shocking, is because the one side of the ball you had faith in, now you have to go back, like you mentioned, the UNI game, are teams that run the ball and are not afraid to run at you. They don't run away from you.
Yeah.
You have to go, wow, where are we at? All right, coming up at 8, Ben Otte will join us for the BA Coaches Show. I'm sure he's got some thoughts on some things that happened. Evan Bland stops by. Also, Jacob Bigalow, as Nebraska now prepares for Purdue. About it's still 9.5?
Yes, it was this morning. Let's see. Has it changed? I don't think it has, but yes, it was 9.5 as of yesterday.
For Nebraska's trip to West Lafayette to play the News Nation team. Their game against Oregon State started on News Nation. What would you rather have? Start on Fox Business or News Nation? But the Oregon State Purdue game, which was one-sided, began on News Nation.
Hey, I remember watching a hockey playoff game, an NHL playoff game on the Golf Network, the Golf Channel. So
I would accept that over
the News Nation
or Fox Business. But Purdue's got their own issues. People are wondering if Hudson Card should be benched. And also they got some wide receiver issues and some injuries. And they got a run defense that couldn't stop me.
Leaky. A little leaky.
You're being kind.
Yeah, I know. But they still have Devin Mockabee.
Against Oregon State and Notre Dame.
They still got crazy legs.
Yeah. They are
Elroy Hirsch.
They are 131st in rush defense. And if Nebraska doesn't run for like maybe a yard or two, people will lose their mind.
Yeah.
Well, plenty to talk about on Purdue and what is the best game plan for that. With our guests and the lineup brought to you by the rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. Interesting weekend in the college football and NFL world. Sometimes we don't know anything about the sport we watch. Something you did mention, line of scrimmage matters. I don't care if you're playing in Pop Warner, you're playing in high school, college, NFL, Captain Obvious here. Line of scrimmage matters, especially in the Big Ten. Looking at you, USC. All right, 36 past the hour. You're more than welcome to join the conversation if you weren't able to get in on Big Red Overreaction. How was Big Red Overreaction on Friday night? How long did they go?
Couldn't tell you.
I think they went I was out and they were still going, and that was probably an hour later. But we did get some really good stats from our man Chris Prudon as far as the phone call frequency. Did you see that?
No.
They had
third down conversions,
380 inbound calls, 380, and they were only able. And again, this is people are like, "What the hell? Why don't you answer all these phones?" They were only able to get to 26 of them.
Ooh.
380 inbound calls, man.
They only took 26 calls.
That's
not a good ratio.
That's according to the numbers from our man Chris Prudon, engineer extraordinaire, who had all, and we can now track the phone stats, which is kind of fun to do. That's how we will rank a Big Red Overreaction as far as the pulse.
I got to imagine they took more than 26 calls that made it on air.
Yeah, it says 380 inbound calls and answered 26.
That's a lot.
You guys can go ask Joey. I guess he was here. I don't know. I don't pay attention.
It seemed like, okay, so I did catch
the support,
I did catch the first hour.
Bet, my friend.
It did seem like a lot of them were getting in and out. So I unless it just kind of hit a slog there at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe there were some spam calls. Somebody talking about maybe refinancing your home or something.
You guys know what time the Purdue game is on next week.
Yeah, somebody wanted probably the TV listings for Saturday as well.
All right. Therapy session on a victory on Monday for some. You can join us on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, 402-951-1620. Always in the Equitable Bank inbox, which is off and running today. Trying to respond as many as possible during the show. And I also appreciate everybody that was like, hey, you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to send me your email when you emailed me and said you were right. I admit I was wrong. I was off. Illinois played better than I thought. They played better than I thought. They played the best game of the year. Nebraska, of course, did not. Into the Equitable Bank inbox, Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620zone.com.
On the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed, at Gary Sharp 1620.
At Nick Handley 1620.
All right, we're off and running. Calls and more on what happened on Friday night and what is the fix for Nebraska moving forward now as they get ready to go to Purdue. That's an 11 a.m. game. It is exclusively on Peacock this upcoming Saturday, homecoming in West Lafayette. 77 kickoff temp. Could be some showers. Grass, first road game. Hello. And Matt Rule speaks later today, which will be kind of interesting on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in on a Monday morning. Lots to discuss here at the end of September. Are we fall or autumn? Are you calling it fall or autumn?
Fall. It's always
Fall.
been fall.
Fall.
You want to sound smart? Do you call it autumn?
I think-
Autumn has arrived.
I think autumn means you're really into the fall decor.
I was going to say
too.
autumn reminds me of going to like Hobby Lobby. Or
Yes,
something.
exactly. If you're autumn, you're putting up like a cool door hanger. Maybe you got your hay bales out in the front yard. You're really leaning into it. Not saying we did or did not go to a little place to get a lot of pumpkins yesterday, but we did.
Fall means football and playoff baseball in a couple weeks.
My wife cannot. Fall can't come soon enough. It's almost like in July she's already thinking about fall. She loves fall. She's an autumn. We'll just say that
Okay.
she's an autumn. I'm a fall.
That's fair.
On Twitter,
I like that.
Senator John Thune sucks nuts. Tweets at Gary Sharp 1620. BRO was lacking this last week. I'm sure being a Friday had the hosts wanting to go home. That needs to change. Put the youngins on the late games. That one should have gone till 2 a.m. I'm telling you, those are miserable shows to do. I just want everybody to know that yours truly, who has not done a winning show in about a year and a half now, will be doing Big Red Overreaction. So the olders are doing 11 a.m. shows from the Whiskey Fest at Hilton Omaha with John Schreiner.
You have a good day.
Have not won in a year and a half.
Well, for Ohio State's night game, I mean, I consider myself older. I'm 45. You and I are doing that one.
Yeah, I those are tough shows to do, and yeah. So I
Wait, you two are doing Ohio State?
Yeah.
I might listen
what
to that
happened
one
to-
then.
I thought Bishop and I were doing Ohio State.
Nah, it's you and I believe.
Ooh, are you ready for that?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a pretty bad one against Maryland last year.
He's had some really bad ones.
I know you had. That was my only loss last year was the Maryland one.
I think I did the Maryland game.
It was Peterson and I.
Was it?
That was the one we had to be in the
Oh,
other
no.
Did
studio.
the night game. We were driving back from Lawrence and
between
week after.
between the studio issue in the other studio and
That's
the game itself, it probably wasn't the best thing.
Also on Peacock, like this week's game.
Yeah, very true.
Iowa JD. Just be happy that you have Caleb Johnson as your running back.
31 points.
You can say whatever you want about the defense. The fact is, Nebraska can't line up and run the ball when they need to. This is what should scare Nebraska fans. That O-line is trash. And there is nothing Nebraska can do about it. Illinois D-line is bad. That'll be another topic of discussion today when Matt Rule meets the media, is how soon can Micah Mazuka be back on the field? Because the reality is he would have made a difference. There's a man that would have beat you up, picked you up from the ground, beat you up again, stood on top of you, gone stone cold Steve Austin with a beer, and then said, where do we do next? He would have been perfect. Friday night was the perfect game for him. And I hope the message has gotten across that in a game that would be ideal for you, you were standing on the sidelines. He makes a difference. Because if you look at when he has played, guard, center, guard, not bad. I mean, Ben Scott can only do so much. And then also, when they have Mazuka out there, who is their best run blocker, they do get a little creative in the run game. I'm not going over the top. They don't get super creative, but they run a little bit more counter and some other things when he's there and they pull Evans. So hold on to that. Let's see what the difference is when he returns to the lineup, which I would imagine would be Saturday. If not, probably need a further discussion. All right, let's start the morning on the phones here on the 42 Degrees Source hotline with Gary. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Mr. Sharp. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Kind of still sad for Friday night, but some 3 comments. One, I know sometimes NIL money is designated for quarterbacks, but we better up the ante in our NIL fund for kickers and try and go get that South Florida kid that can kick 67 yards as a freshman or the Temple guy that kicks a 54-yarder. Both of them right down the middle. That's one comment. Second comment, is it time, Mike Severe on Sunday when I called in was saying that Mr. Rule will fire people if necessary. So is it time to get rid of Mr. Foley for special teams?
All right, Gary, thanks for the...
Have a great day, guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Gary. That is true. I mean, Matt, this is going back to something I said earlier about you have a coach that will address situations. I think will make business decisions and not necessarily decisions based on loyalty. Now, to expect an Ed Foley firing in the middle of the year or anything like that, I don't know if I would go that far. But as far as if there, I mean, this is the self-evaluating that I know Matt Rule will do, that will continue to do, to evolve the program, that if you feel like there is a need for someone or something different when it comes to a voice in any position group or any phase of the football, that he will do that. He's done it before, both as an NFL coach and as a college coach. So that part of it, I don't really worry. This is where I think when there are things that need to be addressed with your football team, both internally, externally, I think you have a guy that is not afraid to make those decisions.
Fix the kicking, for God's sake.
He's saying we need a 54, 60-yarder. Just give me a 50, give me a 45-yarder.
So the last 3 years, Nebraska's kickers are 24-38.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is
fix the kicking, but you know what? It's not just the place kicking.
Oh.
It's why are you punting to the wrong side of the field?
Thank you.
Brian Buschini, I don't know where you were, but there was a game in East Lansing where the punter had a nice punt, and it went to the wrong side of the field where the gunners were going and the coverage was going, and a guy could have run all the way to Detroit. For Michigan State, it changed the game. I thought it was ironic that special teams let you down in key situations on Friday night, and earlier in the week, the aforementioned Ed Foley, who right now, I don't know if you have much faith in him, and it's maybe not necessarily all his fault, but he's in charge of that part of the Nebraska football program, is he said, we don't want to be the reason we lose. Well, you were part of the reason that Nebraska lost on Friday night. Close games, kicking matters. They said that. Kicking matters, but I have ordered a shirt that says, fix the kicking. Pure and simple. Here is Andrew. Andrew, good Monday morning.
Hey, guys.
Oh.
How are you doing?
Good. Apparently not as good as you.
Doing well. You know what? Could have lost a game last night, but won a game. And now my NFL team is 3-0.
Don't you live a charmed life.
The game, it was everybody lost that game. I know a lot's on the kicker. The only one who probably didn't really lose the game, even though he threw the interception, was Rola. But the offensive line was terrible. The defensive line was terrible. We didn't get pressure on the quarterback. In that overtime, it seems like a lot of teams do this against us. It seems like our ends never stay home, and they cut back run against us. It brought back flashes of the Colorado game with Crouch, where Colorado, did a lot of cutbacks on us. They're good. The line's going one way, and they cut back the other way. How come our backs don't seem to have that capability?
It's a fair question, Andrew, because I think when you look at what Nebraska has right now, Dante Dowdell's more of a downhill runs into contact type of guy, where I would say the one that maybe has the best vision is used in spots is probably Emmett. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't understand why Emmett isn't starting. I mean, Dodell is nice, but he's pretty much going to see a hole and run right at it and really not try to juke you or anything. Is that a fair assumption?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think it even, if you look at certain short yardage situations, Dowdell's style, is fine, but also even a Gabe Ervin, who is a little bit stronger from that standpoint as well. I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like Dante Dowdell is a problem, but to your point of the vision and seeing holes, I don't think that's necessarily his overall strength.
No, not at all. And, some of these guys on the offensive line, it's been years that they've been, and I know Benhart grades out well, usually, but at times when it seems like a big game, he is missing. He's just not there, and he gets dominated. Our offensive line got dominated on the running, and it just shouldn't be that way.
It's
so that's all I have.
Yeah, Andrew, thanks for the call. It's not a new problem. Back to the pass rushers. Illinois had a great plan. They would let Nebraska's pass rushers, if they got any pass rush, just get upfield, and that would create a lane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did a really good job, especially in the second half, of more so on offense, but also on defense, matching Nebraska's personnel and matching Nebraska's alignment. And this whole conversation is going to be like this today because I think it's fair because you have one, you have to mention the other. That game was very winnable for Nebraska.
Yeah,
but here's the problem. The continuous problem is when they have a chance to step on the throat, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They have, and this is not Friday night. This is a new thing, and comes back to rear its ugly head in close games. When they have an opportunity to seize a game, they just can't find that extra play, that extra player, a bounce, create breaks, take advantage of breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they could have done something on Friday night where you got to the end and that game was not a one-score game or a tied game. They had a chance to go up 14.
Yep.
And then there's the other side of it where, come on, that ball game was over when Rola, and he'd love to have that pass back, he misses in the end zone with Lindemeyer. That was on Dylan. But I think I know after watching that play, kind of how it unfolded. I'll explain a little bit later. He'd love to have that back. Love to have that back. You can't have a miss like that. But when that miss happened and you go from 3rd and 3 to 4th and 3, before I even got to the kicker, I thought the game was over. I thought, oh, there was our chance.
Yeah.
There was our chance. The game was over. That's a mindset that probably going to take a while to wash out because that has lingered for a while. But when they've had a chance to step on a throat in close games, they haven't been able to before you ever get to late in the fourth quarter and it becomes a tension convention.
Well, and that's the other part about, for a team that has shown some promise there in the first half with what they do offensively too. You look at 17 points in the first half compared to just 7 points in the second half. We've also looked at certain trends throughout this year. I mean, even to some extent, the UTEP game too, but going to the Colorado game, and again, a lot of penalties in that game. Some of them were called probably fairly, others not, but it doesn't matter offensively.
How does defense have that many penalties? What in the friggin' is that?
Well, yeah, and
but also Nebraska has been penalized. I mean, whether you think it's the right call or not, we can debate that all day. College football has got an officiating issue, but I mean, the defensive penalties. The 15-yard penalties.
Well, yeah, and even the one that
what are we doing?
The face mask on Allmeyer that wasn't called on a stop. So I mean, there are times that it's not always they're just it's easy to always go at if you're a fan of they're flag happy on Nebraska. There's been moments that they've missed some stuff too that could have hurt Nebraska. It's also that inability to maybe even kind of to your point as well, that inability to match the second half offense to what you've done in the first half when you're getting points, when you're taking advantage of certain situations. And, there's those moments where you do get the complementary football where you get either, a strip, whether it's a strip sack that you're unable to convert into points, but you get the John Bullock strip away from that. And then all of a sudden you put that into points. There's that complementary football that you'd like to see. Or if you have maybe you're getting a couple of first downs, but then you get to midfield and then you're stalled out. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be the end of the world because like we saw against Colorado, well, you punt them, you pin them deep inside the 5, then all of a sudden you're allowing your defense to make plays. So then all of a sudden you have 3 phases of it working, playing complementary football. Where is that in the second half?
I'm right here with Clint. Texter Clint, the Illinois game felt weird before the game. Like I was not at the game. I was doing TV somewhere else. But texting with people, like we're driving from Omaha, they said there's hardly any traffic on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Tailgate was okay, but it was just a weird vibe. It was a Friday night. It was a weird vibe.
Some people were listening to us.
Once you got into the stadium, it felt like a normal game. And hell, please don't take advantage of Nebraska fans just because Nebraska fans will show up wherever their team is playing. When Frost said they were going to play at Uzbekistan, people would have looked into, does Epley have a connecting flight? Okay? Don't take advantage of Nebraska fans, but Nebraska fans will show up wherever Nebraska plays. But it was a different, like I heard from numerous people that once I got in the stadium, it felt like a Saturday, but everything else felt like a Friday. And the Nebraska was just off. I don't know if that'll be brought up today when the head coach speaks and he's had some time to think about it, but the vibe was just off. Was there something going on? Were they surprised by something? It just, I don't know. And then Clint says it's a good thing to get away for a away game. I agree. First 4 games were at home. Now you go on the road for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you guys
Yep.
that are making the road trip. You play in an environment that at 11 a.m., even though it's homecoming and it's sold out, might be a little bit sleepy. People are going to tell you all week, Purdue sucks. You should beat them. Well, you probably listened way too much last week. I imagine this week is going to be difficult. This is a good identity week, but this is also a week, in my opinion. If you are who you say you are or want to be, you play to your standard, not the competition.
It's interesting about what was being brought up about just the overall feel of Friday night, where, and having been there the week before, it was somewhat flat as well. Now, again, you win that game, but there were things where you're like, didn't love this or that. Nobody had that, and you were there for the Colorado game. Nobody had that feeling going into Memorial Stadium that Saturday night. Everybody felt like, damn, this is going to be fun. And it seemed like everything that I heard from people that experienced that, both as a fan or a member of the media in that Colorado game, what you saw didn't really surprise you because it matched just the overall buzz in the stadium. This is, and I've heard this question in the last 48 hours of, and this goes back more on to the defense, is where is that juice that they showed against Colorado that you haven't seen now in the last 2 weeks against Northern and against Illinois, that it's been lacking, it's been missing. And then there's the whole, what we saw, that chasing three of, they put a lot into that Colorado game, going all the way back to February and mat drills and everything, that there was a lot about that, a lot of conversation about that, of how do you match that intensity? Because you have that ability to, and everybody can say what they will about Colorado, whether they're a good football team or not, but there's skill position players. There's players that can hurt you, and they have a very good quarterback that Nebraska essentially made pedestrian in that game. Yet you have a less known Luke Altmaier, who, again, and maybe this is the perfect difference between the two teams, between Colorado and Illinois, that they faced, is you might have more talent on that side of the offense when it comes to Colorado, but as far as preparation, and this is where coaching obviously does matter, Brett Bielema and that staff, they had them prepared. And how does Nebraska match that? Because I'd like to think up until these last couple of weeks, one of the things that I loved about Nebraska's defense is they always seem prepared. They always seem aligned there. And if somebody throws something at them that they weren't expecting, they usually make that adjustment pretty quickly. We didn't see that on Friday night.
All right, Jimmy's got an update coming up next.
Dayton Raiola, 2 years younger than Dylan, announces his commitment to Nebraska. See, so even when you lose in a weekend, you win. A junior at Buford High School, the Buford High School. Dayton just took over the starting quarterback there for Dylan at 6'1", 210 pounds. He's a little shorter than Dylan if you're scoring at home, more of a runner. Also left-handed, so you can put that down as you get your score sheet ready. Dylan is right-handed, in case you didn't know. He is the first commitment of Matt Rule's 2026 class. Continuing our theme of positivity, as I am the ray of light of the show, as you can tell by the sound of my voice. Nebraska Volleyball earns its second win of the week against a top 5 opponent at the Big Chicken Bucket in Louisville as they sweep the Cardinals. They improved to 10-1 on the season on national TV, by the way, after picking up their first sweep against a top 5 team on the road since February of 21. Louisville falls to 8-2. They dominated the serve game with 7 aces to none for Louisville. The Huskers were also stout defensively, posting 9 blocks and holding Louisville to 133 hitting. Nice. They begin Big Ten action at home next weekend. They welcome UCLA to Devaney on Friday at 7 and then USC Sunday at 6:30. Be a nice welcome for them. The Storm Chasers, they're still playing. They're held to 1 hit in their regular season finale. Is Louisville, not the same volleyball team, the Louisville Bats. They blanked the Storm Chasers 6-0 yesterday afternoon. Omaha was shut out for the first time since August 22nd. They were no hit through 6 2/3 innings before Tyler Tolbert lined a single to center in the 7th. Now the good news, they finished the regular season 89-59 as its .601 winning percentage is the second best in franchise history. They next begin the best-of-3 International League playoff series against most hated rival Columbus at 6:35 tomorrow night at Werner Park. You can just feel the city just brimming with hate for Columbus. It's going to be amazing. I hope they have bunting and everything. In overtime, high school football, by the way, Saturday, Columbus stops Fremont's try for 2 and keep the FNC Cup it's possessed since 2018 with a 28-27 win. So lived up to the expectation at Memorial Stadium. Fremont still leads the series 49-46 and 2. Great stuff, though. Looks like it was a great time. Sans the heat that didn't leave until yesterday. In college football, Mac Brown tells the Cowboys and LeBron television network that he is not resigning after an emotional locker room scene with his players following North Carolina's embarrassing 70-50 loss to James Madison. It was not that close in the 3rd season as an FBS school. Mac, a college football Hall of Famer, said he told the players it was his fault and that he would step away if he couldn't get things fixed. The 70 points were the most ever given up by the Tar Heels, who fell to 3-1. He told said LeBron and Cowboys television network that he was aware of some reports that messages in emotional locker rooms can be misconstrued, but he was adamant that he is not stepping down. And now baseball. Except for the Royals. They've decided to stop winning a few weeks early as they are swept by the Giants yesterday 2-0 as both teams celebrated the 2014 World Series. Both teams only get 3 hits. Thankfully for them, though, the Twins lose a doubleheader at Boston. The Royals fall to 82-74. Minnesota falls to 81-74. By the way, Cleveland clinches the AL Central over the weekend. Shout out Nick Handley. You can go now.
Thank you. Hey, they never gave up that lead. Said if they gave up that lead, they weren't winning the division. They shared space for a day with the Royals, but never fully gave it up. Not saying I was right. I'm just saying if they would have given up that lead, we wouldn't be talking about them as AL Central champs.
You were right. The teams behind them, except for Detroit, are just...
Yeah.
What was August 27th? The Royals were tied for first.
What a day that was.
Yes. Hope was in the air. And now Detroit's hope is in the air. Wow. What a great story. What a great sports story.
Yay. Yeah. Here's some good news. Finally, congratulations, at least in baseball. Congratulations to the Chicago White Sox, who blow a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 8th inning to lose 4-2 yesterday at San Diego. Their tenuous lead disappeared in the span of 4 Padres batters, and the White Sox went on to their 120th loss. They are 36-120, tying the post-1900 record set by the 1962 expansion New York Mets. Shout out, Mr. Met.
Hey, by the way, how smart was Jason Benetti?
In general, I think he's very smart.
Can you please explain to me?
He was the TV announcer for the White Sox last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh,
because of their ownership.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
He left.
He's at Detroit.
He's Detroit.
Yes. And which is kind of fun is that Detroit, if they are to see this thing through and get that final wild card spot, they wrap up with the White Sox. That's why their playoff percentage chance is just a little bit higher than the Royals.
I'll go a step further.
How about that?
If they are in the playoffs, they could be matched up with Houston. AJ Hinch and Houston have a little bit of a history, Jimmy?
Little bit. All of my other sports are turning to poop, so why not that too? Anyway, the Padres, who are closing in on a postseason berth, gathered in front of their dugout to applaud a sellout crowd in the bottom of the 8th, top of the 9th, And then fans even chanted beat LA because they have a huge series starting tomorrow night with the Dodgers. Oh, and finally, because I'm obligated, it's a sports radio station, there was football yesterday. Some teams won, some teams lost, like the Dallas Cowboys, that are the football team equivalent of a nice, warm, heavy diaper loaded with some sort of green, rancid concoction that makes you question everything that a human being could eat. In a related story, I'm going to take up reading on Sundays until I take up gambling once I can afford it.
Or drinking.
Once I can afford it.
That's all right. I had to watch.
Could you wait a minute? Could you afford drinking? Because your owner couldn't afford Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Good thing I'm not him.
That's a very good point.
What NFC East team will Bill Belichick be coaching next year? The Giants, the Eagles, or the Dallas Cowboys?
Dallas Cowboys.
I would think the Cowboys, but you know what? I'm going to go with the Giants.
He's minus 500 to be coaching in the NFC East next year.
Hey, big W for the Giants.
Would the Giants
hold off on
want
the Giants?
him, though?
Come on now. Yeah, remember I said 9-8 for the Bears. Yeah. Just going to go ahead and say that won't happen.
Because you got a high school football coach that's your offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah, Shane Waldron. Yeah, he's
a
bad.
sprint option with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, might be.
Just go wishbone at this point.
This was something that Matt Verzal brought up last year when it came to play calling. It said, and I think there's an argument to be made about between college football and the pro game that it's a skill, play calling, and you don't see it as much anymore. So there's been some really bad play calls probably in the last couple of years that I'm sure all of us can think of our favorite teams like, oh, that was really, really bad, or ones that are just because you're a football fan, you remember. Right before halftime, and when they got 4 cracks at it inside the 4-yard line, that third down play
they go 5 wide
is maybe the worst. And you got to remember, I've seen the Bears organization have some really amazingly bad offensive coordinators.
About a worst play call.
Well, there was.
Raheem Morris would like a word.
Atlanta might be saying, "Hold my beer" on that last play on 4th down. But yeah, the F was that. I mean, seriously.
I think you're also in a division. Well, okay, you're going to scar your rookie quarterback for life because he's always under pressure.
Yep.
I had him throw 50 times.
53 times, to be precise.
50 plus times.
Yep.
Air Chicago.
But what happens in that division is you got 3 pretty good coaches.
Yep.
Dan Campbell. I think Matt LaFleur. I could quarterback the Packers and we would have success. I mean, there's a guy that is not stubborn. Mm-hmm. So when you have Malik Willis, you don't try and you do what is best for Malik Willis. And look at that. Their last 2 weeks, what they did in Indianapolis and Tennessee, and say what you want about the Colts and the Titans, but still, I don't have Jordan Love. I have a guy that just arrived and is still living out of his suitcase in the Motel 6 across the street from Lambeau. They've won 2 games. And then you have, on the other side, a guy who, I think if we stop the voting right now, Kevin O'Connell would be the coach of the year in the NFL. What he's done with Sam Darnold. Yeah. So you're in a division with 3 pretty good coaches, and you get exposed. Something I don't think you already know about your head football coach is Eberflus is not he is if Caleb Williams doesn't grow, I mean I don't think he'll grow under this staff.
No, I don't either.
So he'll have a new head coach next year.
Yeah.
But you're in a division where coaching matters. You got 3 pretty good coaches, and that's an area where you need to improve because you've improved in so many other areas of your roster.
And
see, Nick, let's get a hot board going for the Bears. I'll join you on that. We'll get a good coach.
The Lions are pretty much what we thought they would be.
And you know what? And that's a hell of a win yesterday for them. And Aaron Glenn, their DC, he dialed up a great game plan yesterday.
Well, the team that I thought would be interesting, especially with, my God, the things that they dealt with in the offseason. And then, you have a death of a player, but then also, you lose your rookie quarterback for the season too, and J.J. McCarthy. So your season is hinging on Sam Darnold and what he can do and what Kevin O'Connell's done, because I don't think anybody really didn't have faith in the defense and what Brian Flores would do on that side of the football. The Minnesota Vikings story right now is probably one of the best stories in the NFL because they legitimately look like a great team, and they look like they could take that division.
I think they might be the best team in the NFL through 3 games.
They're the most consistent one, that's for sure. And they've at least been tested.
They've beaten the Niners.
Yeah.
They've beaten their defense wrecked C.J. Stroud.
Right, and that is a good Houston team.
Yeah. And Sam Darnold, remember Sam Darnold, who is an elite placeholder, is without Hawkinson and Addison.
Right. Yeah,
He scored 34 yesterday, and he's got, 8 touchdown passes?
Yep.
That's a Kevin O'Connell impact. I would even say this. I'll go a step further. Look at me. Should be on Purple Rain podcast later today. Sam Darnold is probably your 3-game MVP.
Yeah.
Along with the coach of the year. Belongs to the Vikings.
I cannot disagree. And then back to LaFleur, and I know you sing his praises a lot. I just have a tough time doing it because of the Packers. But when we saw Packer Joey this morning, I had to give him applause because you go 2-0 with Malik Willis, and now in your biggest game of the season when you take on the Vikings next week, most likely you're getting Jordan Love back for that one. You were able to hold the ship together. And the Packers, they functioned offensively at a very high level. Like what they allowed Malik Willis to do in week 1 of his start against the Colts compared to what they did yesterday, where I think, he throw 12 times last week, and they didn't need him to. But this time you give him almost 20 passes. He's efficient, but also devising a game plan that's going to work for Malik Willis because the guy does have a strong arm, and they're allowing to take a little bit of the brakes off the offense for him, but also supporting him with a very good rushing attack too. What Matt LaFleur and that team did, their defense is good. That's going to be a strength still. But to be able to hold the ship together, take advantage, because in the NFL, because they were underdogs against the Colts at Lambeau a week ago, and then to put it on a Tennessee team they got some turnovers.
You guys know we live in a world that Justin Fields and Sam Darnold are a combined 6-0.
Yes, and one has helped his team more than the other, but Justin Fields hasn't hurt his team.
It just shows in the NFL.
They play for well-coached teams.
We don't know anything about the NFL.
Right.
I mean, the Rams last week looked awful.
Mm-hmm.
For the first part of their game yesterday against the Niners, they looked even worse.
Yep.
And they were down 10 and they beat the Niners.
Right.
I mean, that's the appeal of the NFL is you have no idea week to week what's going to happen. We love it. I mean, I root for a team that basically I root for a team, and I'm not afraid to admit this, and I'm sure people know that all the officials are Chiefs fans, season ticket holders, when they can make it.
The league is, yes.
Kansas City is like a horror movie.
Oh, that's
there's a lot of drama, and there's a lot of suspense, and there's that voice in the basement that is telling you to come down. But at the end that the hero is always going to win. That's what the Kansas City Chiefs are.
So the Texans were the voice of the basement yesterday, or not the Texans, but the Falcons.
Yeah. And you know what?
You can't put Kirk Cousins like that.
At the end of the game, the hero, and the end of the horror movie, the hero is always going to win.
Oh, God. We got to call the Chiefs the hero?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that's what they are.
Drago was a hero to the Russians.
But the NFL, again, week to week, you have no idea what's going to happen. No one could have you could have said Kansas City will be 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? No one's going to bat an eye. But Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Minnesota, who their win total was anywhere from 6.5 to 8.5.
Yep.
Those are the 4 3-0 teams.
Yeah.
That's the appeal of the NFL. Week to week, have no idea what's going to happen.
And it's the beauty of this is what's even more maddening about rooting for the team that I do is because it is the beauty of investing into the NFL, because even if your team is the bottom of your division in whatever year it is, the following year they can be right at the top, and they can run that into the playoffs too, because you can get those quick fixes. So it is, it is. Everybody talks about the fantasy element, the sports wagering element of it. This is the one thing about the NFL that has always been appealing, and especially as of late with free agency and everything that has happened over the modern day, where you can get quick fixes. And if you draft well, you have good people in the front office like your team that how to not only find the window, take advantage of the window, but keep that thing open as long as you can because of how your operation functions. It's an amazing thing. And this is why I go back to, because I've said it many times about the Lions. It's weird watching that organization from afar when I've seen them do so many bad things from an organizational standpoint, actually making moves like a big boy organization, that you see how it is now playing out on the field. Because there's always that, well, yeah, but it's the Lions, so they'll still figure out a way to screw that up, even though on paper these look like good moves. Well, it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. So, and that's why I always think, I mean, there was, I have 2018. That's getting a little bit more in the rear view mirror right now for the Chicago Bears. I have 2018. That was the one year that watching them play on Sundays was so much damn fun. They had Khalil Mack. That was a game wrecker. You had wild Mitch Trubisky. Never knew what he was going to do. Yeah. I have those days.
Again, we know nothing about the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know the only NFC South team that won yesterday?
Well, it wasn't the Saints. They got exposed. It wasn't the Bucks. They got exposed. Carolina.
It's Carolina.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know they won.
The red rifle. Oh, I knew they won. They beat the Raiders.
Oh.
So I got. I feel bad because I told a guy last week to take in his survivor pool whoever had Carolina. Now I don't know if he took the Raiders this week. He took who the hell did Carolina play last week? Oh, the Chargers. He took the Chargers. They obviously won that one last week. I don't know if he took the Raiders, but if he did, I'm sorry. Because I said, just take whoever's playing the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I imagine a lot of people got wrecked by the Bucks. Denver beating the Bucks.
And looked good in doing so.
I just need Joe Burrow to beat his fellow LSU quarterback, Jaden Daniels, tonight to stay alive through 3 weeks.
By the way, maybe you're just being coy about it, but you're putting a hurting on my team right now in fantasy.
Oh, we're playing against each other?
Yeah, we are in
about that.
Finest Herbs. They're after a big win last week. Finest Herbs are taking it in the chin this week.
Mr. Singletary sliding down before going into the end zone yesterday for the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
We got to have some speaks.
Well, you didn't need that.
I'll be sending a letter.
You didn't need that against me.
But you know something else of the weekend of football and more in the NFL than college. Any Sunday, Monday, or Thursday that you can hear a doink?
Yeah.
So Butker had a doink last night.
Chris Collinsworth.
And not coming from his mouth.
He had the double doink too with speaking of that 2018 season for Chicago. He had that. He gets so giddy over a doink. He loves
There's
himself
something
a
about
doink.
the noise of a doink.
It is nice, especially with the cameras there.
The noise of the doink is different than any other noise. I mean, once you hear a doink, you know what the doink is.
Yep.
And I think they do it intentionally to have, the mic right there on the uprights.
Yeah, you want to emphasize the doink.
But I've decided something. My enemies, I'm going to record the doink from the Chiefs game last night, and I'm going to make it as a text tone for people I don't like.
I like that.
So the person is actually a doink.
So when their text to me goes off and I don't really want to
interact so when I text you,
it's going to be a doink.
I'm going to have the doink.
It's going to have the doink sound. I have decided
like,
that.
oh, this is from Handley.
Hey, the new iPhones, I'm sure you can do everything. I can have exact texting sounds, and I can insert my own.
Can I at least have the double doink, being a Bears fan?
That would be...
See, but double doink only has to go to a certain group of people that qualify for double doink status.
Well,
not because you're a Bears fan, but you could be a double doink.
I'm kind of a double doink. Ask my wife.
What happened to Doink the Clown?
You asked this a while back. I didn't even know Doink the Clown was a thing.
He was a wrestler.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Doink the Clown. Let's see.
I mean, I've been on chat boards before, wondering if WWE will ever induct Doink into the Clown Hall of Fame, because they do have a Clown Hall of Fame.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I will never set foot in there ever.
Where do you think Bozo goes? The Clown Hall of Fame.
Away like he should.
Whoa!
Just go away. I'm not saying he needs to leave Earth.
Whoa.
I'm just saying go away. Get off my TV screen.
Bozo?
I don't want to be able to talk about Bozo.
You have choices. Move on.
Oh.
What are you trying to kill Bozo for? Grand prize game.
Bozo needs just be. Clowns just need to not be a thing.
Bozo, Harry Carey, Tom Skilling. That was the trio back then.
Hey, well played. He just recently retired, Tom Skilling.
Shout out Tom Skilling.
Yeah. When everybody used to get WGN.
Yeah.
Now you get WGN America on some systems,
Mm-hmm.
but you used to get all the real WGN out of Chicago.
Yeah.
I'd watch it all the time. They'd have the 9 o'clock news. I knew all the anchors like Rick Rosenthal, but Tom Skilling was one of the rare Dan Roan at Sports. Rich King was their weekend guy, but Tom Skilling would get like 12 minutes for weather, and I'd be like, man, you know that Tom Skilling is the GOAT. He just recently retired.
Yeah. The sun goes down at 4:18. Damn.
But good call on Tom Skilling and the trio of Mount Rushmore of WGN personalities.
You guys can pretend that you are okay living in a world where clowns are, a thing. But
I'm with you, except for Bozo. I always wanted to go play on the games, and
you were a big fan of Homie the Clown?
Bozo,
Homie, yeah.
Homie, don't play that. Krusty was okay. Sideshow Mel and Sideshow Bob. They were a different story. But I don't have a good relationship with clowns going all the way back to the Poltergeist when the little doll comes to life and tries to go after Robbie.
I watched Coach, and Craig T. Nelson was in Poltergeist.
He was
good.
Didn't like Chucky?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Chucky.
actually, I'm okay with Chucky because you could punt Chucky. Chucky, you could just, if he comes running at you, you just give him a nice little, whether you're left or right footed, just give him a nice little foot right to the gut.
So Nebraska said about Illinois.
I mean, in this case, you don't need to get it through the uprights.
Ben Audie coming up top of the hour. BA Coaches Show. We'll break down what happened Friday night and what has to change for Nebraska moving forward, especially in, all three phases on 1620 The Zone. Hey, if you're wondering, because I know you are, 6 weeks from today, the college basketball season begins.
It does. And practice begins today?
Wednesday.
Oh, is it Wednesday? Okay. All right.
Because 43 days from today is the election.
That's right.
You start on Monday and you take off Tuesday, and we play basketball on Wednesday.
I was talking to someone yesterday who you know as well that is around a lot of the various sports, and he didn't seem overly wild that two winter sports are already getting underway right now.
I can't believe hockey, preseason hockey this weekend.
Yeah.
We're in football mode, football and volleyball mode, which you heard in Jimmy's update. Nebraska had a good week. They'll probably, when the polls come out today, be number 2 behind number 1 Pittsburgh, who hasn't lost a set.
Mm-hmm.
But they broomed 2 and 4, and tons of confidence. The way they looked, they dominated Louisville yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd have to twist many people's arms to convince you. And I know it's early; it's September, so you got to keep it going until December. The 2 of the best teams are only 50 miles apart, and that they're both going to end up back in Louisville. Creighton was there last week.
Yeah.
Nebraska was there for the second time over the weekend. 2 of the best volleyball programs are right here in this state, and legit Final Four capabilities.
Yeah,
one who is a national championship team.
Yeah, well, and with what Creighton did over the weekend too, with the victory over Purdue, who was at time number 6, Kansas number 10. Yeah,
they dominated Kansas. What they hit?
Awesome.
426,
something like that. Yeah.
Now you just got to keep it going. But Nebraska was a machine this week, an absolute machine. Serving, blocking. This is the best stretch I've seen him serve in a while, and they're so deep. But that was a butt kicking. Now we'll probably find out today, because I've already checked his TikTok, why John Cook had a black eye.
Uh-oh. Do we have theories on this?
I do, but I
accidentally got hit by volleyball.
Was he involved in practice? Did he take one?
So I don't know why it took the broadcast a while to bring this up, because they showed Coach Cook right away yesterday, and he had a shiner. I'm thinking, man, what does the other guy look like? This would be great if Cook was watching the Nebraska game in a bar or something on Friday night, and some guy was mouthing off. All of a sudden, the volleyball coach started swinging, throwing some knuckles.
You admit it. You were hoping that him and Scheffler got into a Kelly Sheffield. Sorry, Sheffield, not Scheffler. Kelly Sheffield got a fight.
But he had a shiner, and nobody was saying anything. And I'm like, what's going on?
You watch Friday's game with Jeff George.
Then, late in the second set, they showed him again, and the analyst was like, oh, John Cook's got a black eye. John Cook and Caitlin Clark, very similar. Both have black eyes now.
Yeah.
Regular Billy Martin.
So they said,
basketball, baby.
They said Cook told them he didn't know how he got it. He woke up and he had it. But
been there
in the post game, so I'm texting some people that are there covering it, and I'm like, you got to ask him. You got to ask him.
Yeah.
Who cares about sweeping Louisville, number 4 in the country?
First question out of the gate.
Just what the black eye?
Yeah. Coach, can you explain?
Harper Murray stopped the question and said it will be revealed on his TikTok.
Okay.
So I think my theory, probably will be wrong, is that they were messing around and he got drilled by a ball.
Yeah, that's what I would have.
So because the latest TikTok, they're talking about serving.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Let me see here.
We need
has it been
wholesome
revealed
content alert.
Also, context, people. Lots of activity today on the emails and the tweets. Somebody just said he died of an overdose. I have no idea.
What?
Who are we talking about?
No, he's fine. He's a black eye. He's good. Hell of a coach.
Guy just said he died of an overdose. And I'm like, no, he didn't. He was coaching yesterday.
No, I didn't. I didn't watch the Cowboys yesterday.
So we'll find out why John Cook has a black eye.
This is what people want to know.
Yes.
What we all want to know.
I also came to a conclusion this weekend.
Singer John Cook.
Came to a conclusion this weekend.
You like your meat rare?
No, now people are saying this is real. Texter Rachel says, happened to my mom. She woke up with a black eye.
How does that
I thought you were
happen?
talking about the overdose. I was like, wait, what?
That's a scary thing. If people are waking up with a black eye, whoa. Do you maybe sleepwalk? You ran into something?
Yeah. That would have to be it.
Go for rebounding.
I don't think your body just decides to induce its own black eye without you forcing the issue. But I mean, the human body, it's a mad scientist.
I'd be freaked out if I woke up and I had a black eye and had no idea how I got it.
Yeah. Especially if I was drinking the night before.
That sounds like a night I had in Morgantown once.
Actually, it'd probably be more acceptable if I was drinking the night before.
So I'm sure
Like,
we'll
well,
find out
makes
sooner
sense.
than later.
Yeah.
We'll get to the bottom of this. Maybe they'll draw it out all year. Like they'll build up his TikTok followers.
So you can let the shiner come down, and then it'll be the great reveal, like at the end of the regular season.
I mean, or they could just like lean into it and say, you should have seen the horse.
See, that was my only other theory would have been it was
Now it says
horse related.
Elmer's.
It was horse related.
But this past weekend, so Nebraska plays on a Friday. Let's don't let it ever have that happen again in Lincoln. Okay? No more Friday night home games. Don't take advantage of the Nebraska fan.
Mm-hmm.
But it gave you your Saturday. You know, there's a crazy thing when you are not covering or at a game. There's a crazy thing that happens in college football is there is all these games on at all hours of the day.
Did you enjoy them?
They do happen.
They're like, you can have 5 screens and have 5 different football games on your screen. And one of your screens actually has 4 games on it. It is, how come they haven't told people about this on Saturdays?
I mean, you're right. I mean, my gosh, what do they do?
So,
wave of the future, man.
So maybe Nebraska should just play Friday road games and then maybe play, I don't know, maybe Sunday home games so that we can have our Saturdays to watch this because I was blown away. I didn't know this was a thing.
It was nice.
Yeah.
But I also wonder if this is a thing in one of the games I watched. Does the USC and Michigan bands only know combined 2 songs?
Yes. Thank you. The USC, well, it's more of a USC thing. Yes, that one. It's always a USC thing that I've noticed over the last 5 years. I don't know if they have any other thing that they play other than dun, 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 dun,
Just watch
dun,
the song
dun,
girls
dun,
and
dun,
enjoy.
Seriously, they only know 2 songs.
Much like the Oklahoma band.
I mean, obviously, hail to the victor. This when you brought that up, I'm thinking more of USC. I'm assuming Michigan has a little bit more versatility, but yes, USC. I've thought that for years. Anytime I watch it, I'm like, gosh, that's all I ever hear from them. That's
Even
all.
on offense, get a big game, they play the fight song.
Mm-hmm.
Defense, they play that.
Yep.
Conquest.
That's all.
Yeah.
I don't think
At halftime they play Tusk.
What do they play that during a score? Well, at home, do they play that during a score? Is that what
The
is
fight
played?
song?
Yeah. What is
fight
is,
on? Yeah.
Mhm.
They play the fight song, and then on stops or defense, they play
Okay.
Conquest.
2. So they have 2 songs.
Mhm.
Be great.
It's
to
like
be
the
a
war
USC
chant at
band
Florida
member.
State.
It's like, hey, you know what? You're like 5 guys. We don't do a lot, but what we do good.
Mhm.
So you got to nail these 2 little ditties right here.
USC band, great in the Naked Gun.
That's true.
Finished off Vincent Lugwood.
Yes, I did.
Well, we're glad to have them in the
Stepping on
Big
the-
Ten, and you got hit with Big Ten reality that you can lose a football game when one team only throws for 32 yards.
I was
Mhm.
wrong, by the way, again.
I don't think that's sustainable. To beat fellow top 15 teams,
No.
I don't think 32 yards passing, when you change a quarterback, but you don't change anything about your offense,
Nope.
Yeah, that makes sense.
they didn't try anything different, no RPOs, none of that kind of stuff. They just stayed the same,
Yeah.
but they changed the quarterback, and they got that game came down to 3 long runs by Michigan,
Mhm.
including the last one, where all of a sudden a pretty stout USC defense looked like defenses of old.
Yeah.
And how did Michigan win that game?
Mhm.
But
Because when they had to run the ball, they ran the ball successfully.
my takeaway of that game is USC is better defensively. I still like their physicality.
Mhm.
They had a breakdown on about 3 long runs where their tackling got sideways, but they're better there. It now comes down with USC is Lincoln Riley a championship coach? I think they fixed their defense.
Yeah.
They have a good offense.
Mhm.
They have a quarterback who
I like Miller Moss.
was hit or miss.
I liked him in that game. I really did. He made a couple of mistakes here, but with what he was up against, there are times. This is bringing it back to Dylan Raiola a little bit too, because we haven't seen the type of quarterback play in the passing game that I think Dylan possesses. But I was watching with Miller Moss. It's the pro level eyes of looking guys off and then coming back to whether it's your third or the fourth progression wherever you are, but just he has that pro, definitely has that pro presence. I think Dylan is showing that he has it early in his career, but watching Miller Moss in that game too, especially in the first half, definitely has that pro presence.
I got beat by Volleyball. I just don't like Michigan threw for 32 yards and they won a game. They won a ranked top 20 matchup game by throwing for 32 yards by playing Volleyball. So welcome to the Big Ten. Line of scrimmage matters.
Yeah.
But is Lincoln Riley a championship coach in crunch time? That is now the mystery of USC. Good coach, good 8-9 win coach.
Yep.
But USC aspires to be more. But I think they've fixed their defense. I think they have an identity on their defense that they have been lacking since he's been a head coach at OU or at USC.
Well, and I thought the way that they started the second half too, USC, after they were getting a bit beat up with the run game there, I thought they looked great, especially for the most part of the third quarter, what they did defensively. So even whether that was major adjustments or just, having better run fits, whatever it was, that they stood up to a physical offensive Michigan line up until a couple, like you mentioned, a couple of busted runs there. But I think, that was just a fun game. It was a great college football game. And I was curious if this would be the sort of welcome to the Big Ten moment for USC, but with Michigan lacking a little bit with the quarterback play, that still felt that USC would have enough offense. This is where Michigan played to their strength of the defense too. But what did we talk about in the first segment? In the Big Ten, can you run the ball when you need to, and can you stop the run when you need to? And this is what Michigan was able to do. But I think there was a lot of things about USC that I liked in that one. It was just a good football game.
Yeah, weird Michigan-Minnesota line. So Michigan clearly has two of the better, if not the best, defensive players in the Big Ten. Will Johnson and Mason Graham.
Mm-hmm.
They're on defense. Have you seen what the line? No, and this is on the heels of can't run the ball or stop the run in Gopher land, and the boat's taken on water. Have you seen what the line is for that game? I am really surprised by the line for the Michigan-Minnesota game.
Wasn't that popping up?
I'm going to give it to you.
Give it to me, please, because I'm not seeing it. It's not popping up on this.
Michigan's a 10-point favorite. Game's in Ann Arbor.
Oh, I would think that would be a lot more.
It's a weird line, especially for a Minnesota team. Again, can't stop the run, can't run the football, and you have a football coach who PJ Fleck now is not only 1-8 against Iowa, but he's 2-9 in his last 11 games against Power 4, Power 5. But yet they are only a 10-point underdog at Michigan.
Yeah, that is a bit interesting from the fact that if you watch that game now, I have a lot of respect for, especially with what Moeling showed in that game for Michigan, with having essentially a two-headed monster at running back with Michigan. I think Caleb Johnson is outstanding, and he had a lot.
That's frightening. By the way, he's got the most 30-yard plus runs.
Yeah.
Why can't Nebraska find a running back like that?
That'd be nice. Just one.
Nebraska only had one run on Friday night that was longer than 10 yards.
Yep. But
running backs matter. Line of scrimmage matters. Running backs matter.
Thinking about
home
the way
run hitters matter.
Caleb Johnson gashed Minnesota and really the Iowa offense, which is not known for its offense, and they're strong up front, that they were able to have their way with Minnesota, that Michigan, I would think, would be even a stronger version of that offensively.
There's trouble in Gopher land because Fleck went with the please stick with us. He pulled the old Dak Prescott. You're either with us or against us. But in this case, Fleck, with the boat taken on water, because he needs somebody to throw him a lifeline.
Yeah.
He's like, don't quit on us. I'm looking at Minnesota, and boy, you got to feel terrible if you're a Gopher fan, because Carolina beat you to start the season, and then they got beat down by Big Jim on Saturday. If you look at Minnesota's schedule, find me more than 2 wins on that schedule. Saturday showed me quick trigger ADs. This could be a really wild offseason for jobs that are open.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Dave Aranda can recover. I think Hugh Freeze is in a pissing contest with quarterbacks. What does Minnesota do? I mean, now some of these guys that are struggling early on that might be on the unemployment line, there are huge buyouts that might save them.
Yeah.
But there could be some very interesting jobs that open up as the season transpires. Like, not great jobs, but on the cusp of, if you hire the right guy, you can turn it into a great job.
Mm-hmm. And what I said before the season had started about Minnesota, I was interested in seeing how it would play out and how that impacts PJ Fleck, given the fact that he's already been well known of looking at other jobs if this thing doesn't go well. Because you're right. I mean, you look at their schedule, UCLA, Wisconsin.
Who actually had a
maybe?
pulse against
better.
LSU. The fans didn't.
Hell of a lot better than
but
Indiana
UCLA
did.
did.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they got a brutal schedule, and given the way that some of these teams are playing too, having Illinois on the schedule as well, it's not going to be easy. That the PJ Fleck, it's because I think the extension for him was I think it was 2 years ago. I'm not sure off the top of my head what his buyout would be, but I'm also curious if you've already been looking at other opportunities. If you start to get down that track where, say, you're going into that first week of November, where I believe they play Illinois into that week, and things aren't going good, and you're not getting the support, and Dinkytown Collective is not getting in the money that they need, that he's already starting to put out feelers, because there's
but can you get a job?
That's
back-to-back losing seasons.
There is that appeal of PJ Fleck of it's probably not going to be. I wouldn't say it'd be a step up, if anything lateral or somewhat below, because there is always that, well, we could get PJ Fleck to sort of resurrect our program or bring it up to at least a average quality. So there are jobs out there that I think PJ Fleck would be right for, but I don't think they're the jobs that really are in the major Power 4 level.
Might be a job that at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night is on your TV.
Yeah, he would be a very good TV guy.
All right. Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show will break down what happened on Friday, what has to be fixed, or what can be fixed in the real time. It's coming up. Evan Bland, Jacob Bigalow as well on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, ZZ Top is bringing the Elevation Tour to the Metro October 1st at Liberty First Credit Arena. Listen all week to the Connor Happer Show to win your way in. Yes, it's finally happened. The ZZ Top Show, 1620thezone.com for all the details.
All right, Ben Otte's going to join us here in a little bit. Bill Connolly has his SP Plus score, rankings, odds, all of that. Win probability out for this game. So I guess like take a gander at what he thinks will happen on Saturday at 11 a.m. in West Lafayette.
Nebraska by 9. That's my guess. I didn't see it.
Jimmy?
The guess, I'm going to say Nebraska by 12.5.
He has a score that I think you picked for Friday. He has Nebraska 31, Purdue 17.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, and by the way, that number has gone up to 10 as of this morning. Nebraska laying 10 on the road. A lot of things about this game would spell Nebraska should be able to have success offensively, and you mentioned the Hudson card, should he or should he not be the trigger man for the Purdue offense? It's a defense, though, I think more than anything, Purdue, that is ripe for the picking, but really felt that could have been the case last week, too. So I'm not going to say that.
Card was 7 of 17 for 56 yards against Oregon State.
That's not good.
People are openly questioning if he should remain the starting quarterback and his pairing with Graham Harrell as the OC.
And for a guy, again, going into the second year into the system, you would think, and this is kind of what we saw on Saturday too with Luke Altmaier, a guy you would think that would take a step forward, being of the age and the experience that he has in college football. To have regression like that too is obviously for Purdue, knowing that they have to be better on that side of the football, and you're regressing, because we remember seeing that last year too. They
look worse on offense.
That was a hapless offense.
They didn't look good against Notre Dame. They looked even worse against Oregon State.
Yeah,
and they're going to be down a couple of wide receivers. I watched a majority of that game. I don't have a BA Coaches Show podcast
yet.
Jet sweep. Ja'Cory Barney, who it took a little bit for him to get involved in the framework of the offense on Friday night. I thought he'd be more active.
By the way, didn't you call for the pop pass?
Yeah.
Good call.
It was just the wrong guy. So
I saw that and thought he was.
So the person that went to practice, they worked on that. It was just a different guy.
Ah, okay.
Beautifully designed, though.
Yeah.
This is why I missed not being in studio on Friday.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah. But I remember you had a little intel there from practice there.
That was something I did not mention, but they said that's a play watch because they were working on it ad nauseum. But the jet sweep will be very successful. I don't know that Purdue will adjust to what Oregon State did to them. So Mr. Barney could be on the jet sweep. I don't have a BA Coaches Show podcast, but that would be my coaching recommendation.
When I was watching the game Friday, someone had brought up who does Ja'Cory Barney remind? He was thinking out loud, asking the question out loud. Who does he remind me of? Who does he remind me of? And I said, other than lining up as an I back on occasion, I think of him kind of like a Percy Harvin. Now it's a little bit more slight, but he's a guy that you can line up on the outside, the inside. He can handle the football. I would think that, even though we saw Wandale have to do it every now and then in the previous regime, I wouldn't think Ja'Cory Barney's lining up at I-back anytime soon. And Percy Harvin, as we know, especially in the NFL with the Vikings, would from time to time. But his overall skill set of where he's on the field, and you always, whether he's in as a playmaker or a decoy, his impact already in such an early season because of what he can do between his hands and his speed. I mean, that's such a huge weapon for what Nebraska can do. And in this game, especially being able to have a little bit of window dressing with that, with the actual jet sweep motion too, and getting him the football, being able to open up lanes. He's just one of those guys. Just give him a crease, man, and that speed, it's elite. So
right, let's talk ball in the next hour. Ben and Evan will join us on 1620 The Zone.
Halftime is brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, largest celebration of whiskey in the region, happening this Saturday. Also, Big Red Overreaction will be taking place. Downtown Hilton is where it will happen. And be sure you're listening throughout the week, especially on Wednesday, and a chance to get some passes to the event on Saturday.
All right, let's go inside of what happened on Friday night and what needs to happen this upcoming Saturday. We welcome in Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
I think I'm better. If we were doing the show on Saturday, probably would have had a different tone.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the positive about this game being on Friday is it kind of gave an extra day to process. So, yeah, I agree with you there.
There's a lot of different things that I want to discuss, but I want to go a place where probably people won't immediately go, but I think you get maybe what they're trying to do. What's your observation on Nebraska on the back end? Is it the transition from Cooper to Butler? Did they change their schemes a little bit? Because they don't seem to be on point through 4 games consistently like maybe we thought they would. Now, I know Buford, if you run him vertically, that's going to be a challenge. We know Hartzog. But they're just, in the back end, there seems to be something off. Do you observe that? And if that's the case, what do you think is different that maybe also can be fixed?
I 100% observed that. I went through and watched the game Saturday morning again, and then I watched it again yesterday. And every time that I've watched it back, I've had a pretty consistent theme of our defensive backs did not play very good at all on Friday night. And I do think that it is probably a change in the scheme because we have changed the scheme quite a bit just from what we did last year to this year. I'm not sure if it's a transition from Butler to Cooper. I don't know, but I will be real with you guys. That is at least something that I'm keeping my eye on, if that makes sense. I had kind of made some notes down because, in my opinion, we didn't really see a lot of these completely wide open errors last year from Cooper's DBs. And maybe it's the scheme, maybe it's a bunch of things, but there was like that first touchdown in particular is what that first touchdown really rubbed me the wrong way when I went back and watched it a few times. And the reason being is without knowing like the defensive call, you're never going to know like 100% like who was at fault, right? But I was able to at least narrow it down to it was either the corner or the safety on that play. I forgot who the two were off the top of my head, and I won't, go throw them out there. But it was either they're supposed to bracket him off for a double team because otherwise there's no reason for our corner to start inside and then cross his face and go outside unless we're going to have a safety helping over the top, taking away the inside. The problem with that was when our corner went outside, if you go back and watch that play, the safety just stood there. Mm-hmm. So there was just a wide open receiver with a completely huge open window to the inside. So those are things that I definitely think obviously have to be fixed. Have to. But I do believe they are fixable. I think some of the fixes need to be more looking in the film room now. I mean, obviously what they do on the practice field and all that's mega important. But I think at least some of these mistakes, you can just pull up that game film and say, look at this. Like, how did this happen right here?
I know it's been a few days, but when I last interacted with you Friday night after the game, it was the overtime portion of Nebraska, and not even
worst overtime in the history of college football.
It was
100%.
awful. And I know then everyone starts going back to since 2014, the last time that Nebraska put points on, but hell, even get a first down. So it's 28 plays, minus 21 yards and 4 interceptions since then. When you look at what Nebraska's trying to do, and obviously penalties set you off. What happened with the offensive line the next couple of plays too set you back. I don't want to go all the way back because of different teams, different personnel, but as far as what you're seeing Nebraska accomplish, let's just start with this. How big was that, the procedure penalty to set Nebraska off, and what they showed they could do throughout the game and what they still had the ability to do and unfortunately did not in overtime?
I think that procedure penalty was huge because we had no momentum at that point after the defense had already been out there, and that just took away even the slightest bit of momentum that we could possibly have. It already just set us off. And I agree with you guys. That was just absolutely – that was one of the worst overtime periods
And there's been bad
I've
ones.
ever seen. Yeah, but that's up there. And like just because it was both sides of the ball that looked absolutely atrocious out there. I think the biggest thing is if I try to put myself in Matt Rule's shoes a little bit, like what would I do in this situation? Because there's obviously a ton of things from that game that did not go good. There's a lot of them. I know that it was a close game, but I think we can all agree there's a lot of facets of that game that did not look good. If I'm putting myself in Matt Rule's shoes, I'm calling in all my coordinators individually, and then I'm going to call in like my team captains as a whole of the units, right? And just kind of say, how did our mindset get here? How did this happen so badly? And I think, again, it was both sides of the ball. Like, we can't let a 5-yard procedural penalty lead up to, 3 sacks in 4 plays? Like, that just – we can't end up letting one bad thing happen on offense to end up becoming a 3rd and 42. Like, those kinds of things, that was very troubling to me. And then, obviously, defensively, you come out at overtime, and it's just a huge – I mean, that was terrible. I mean, that first run, that was just not very sound football at all. Like, that was just supposed to be an inside zone that he popped out to the outside and almost scored a touchdown on that first play. That's just not being very gap disciplined.
Yeah, I was startled at how unprepared Nebraska was when they started overtime, which I'm vibing with something I'm feeling that after Dylan had the rare miss in the end zone to Lindenmeyer, that game was essentially over. And it was like, oh, here we go again. Another part of the defense, and this has to do with a lot of the red zone and success on Friday night. Why do you think Illinois had so much success with play calls near the goal line that it made Nebraska look like they weren't even on the field?
I don't know if it was something that they saw on film, and if it is, then props to them. We bit on that play action pass at the goal line every single time. Like, that was something that was also very upsetting to me, because something that Matt Rule had said kind of going into the game was, hey, a lot of this game preparation is going to be how we adjust at halftime, how we adjust during the game, right? And, hey, they get a touchdown off the play action pass at the goal line, all good. They saw something on film. The fact that they did it, was that 3 times, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was very troubling to me, that every time at the goal line, like, we just bid on it it was wide open receivers, guys. That's what was bothering me. It's not like, oh man, this guy just made a heck of a play. Like, hey, sometimes you got to live with that. That's football. You know what I mean? But when we're crashing in on the run so hard and we're just not even accounting for a tight end, that was very troubling to me. That it, like you said, it was like Nebraska defense wasn't even on the field in some of those situations. And that's what was troubling to me. But again, I feel like those are things that could potentially be fixed. I'm not one of those guys that's going to come on here and say the sky is falling or anything. I do think these things are fixable, but it was a very big red flag to me that we weren't adjusting and getting kind of burnt by the same things all night.
Well, and you're right. And on top of that, there was a lot of, you mentioned receivers just, running open pretty much the entire night. My question, and this kind of goes back to what Gary talked about, the secondary too, is it scheme? Is it just simple lack of communication? The whole idea between, thinking it could be fixed, we still feel confident, right? And maybe we don't, Ben, but I'm asking you, we still feel confident that they have the Jimmies and Joes on that side of the football that can make those adjustments. I mean, is it more of a communication thing?
I do think there is quite a few communication errors that happened on Friday night. I mean, if you just go look at some of those big plays, you can kind of see some of our players. And I hate the whole, when you just kind of throw your arms up at each other thing. But to me, you can tell there was a few communication errors. And some of those wide open receivers, you can see that, like in some of the zone coverage, there just was no pass off. So then the guy ends up wide open. So I do think it's fixable. And you ask, am I still confident? And my answer is yes. But I'm not as confident today as I was a week ago, if that makes sense. I came on here last week and said, hey, I think, when you guys asked like who the unit was going to be, I put the defensive backs because I thought they were going to get tested a little bit by an offense and a game plan that was going to be good. Well, they failed that test. So I'm not going to, put them in, my doghouse as a whole for the whole season, but I at least have my eye on them even further coming up. And obviously I think Purdue is a lesser opponent than what we faced on Friday, but I am still going to have my eye on that, on how do we do there, because I do think it was communication errors. I don't think it's a scheme thing completely. I'm not willing to rule out that maybe our scheme isn't great this year. I'm not willing to rule that out. I'm just not willing to go there just yet after one bad performance. But it is something I am at least keeping my eye on there.
Yes, something's off because, man, for guys just to be standing looking at each other in the end zone, man, I don't know. Friday night was just weird to begin with. Nebraska never seemed to be on point. But let's go over to the offensive side of the ball. And, Matt Rola after the game didn't have a problem with Satterfield's play calling. I will tell you, I think one of his best play calls was the 3rd and 3 because the personnel they had on the field, Illinois had no idea that they were going to throw the ball. Illinois looked at the personnel on the field and said, oh, Nebraska's going to run it. Because there were guys on the field that you would not expect Nebraska to throw the football. Yeah. That was a moment. And Dylan missed in the end zone, which I don't think was his first read. There's a crosser that's coming across to Borkature wide open. I think that was his read. And then in the distance, he saw Lindenmeyer open and adjusted and missed on him. And that's on Dylan. That's a miss. That's got to be connected. Yeah. But I love the concept of what they were doing. But I want to go back earlier in the game when it pertains to going for the pass compared to the run. The drive that Nebraska had 1st and goal at the 5. Dowdell runs for 2. Okay, so now you have 2nd and goal at the 3. Bam, bam, back-to-back passes. You have to settle for a 21-yard field goal. What do you think goes through Satterfield's head trying to combine, man, we got Rola. They're giving us some options in the passing game to let's just simply run the ball, boys.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. I thought Satterfield called a pretty good game. I don't think it was perfect, but I don't think in Division I football you're going to see a perfect game plan from pretty much anybody. I do think that it is kind of a tough balance because, like I said on here last week, I still think this is a run-first team. But the way that Illinois was shutting down our inside run game, absolutely, completely dominating it up front. I'll be real. I thought of you guys a couple of times during that game, and I was thinking, man, I don't care what I said to Nick and Gary. I want to just put the ball in 15's hands some of these times, right? Just because that was kind of more as the game went on a little bit. But I do think it is kind of a tough balance right now because we have such a talented kid. I think he's the most talented freshman in the entire country right now. I think that's a very tough thing when the run game isn't going perfect. That hey, just put the ball in 15's hands. And I do think that, I don't know, I feel like that's a tough balance because in some instance, we did put the game in 15's hands and we did trust him. And not to, kind of go back to that 3rd and 3, I thought that also was a beautiful play call. I think that was actually the 3rd read was the deep ball because we also had the flat. But it's just a miss. But then when we talk about putting the, trust in the kid, I don't love that we went for the field goal in that instance, if I'm being real with you.
I'm right there with you.
In some instances, we trusted, we put the ball in 15's hands, and hey, I am good with that. I'm good with that pretty much at any portion of the game. Obviously, the one you referenced about, throwing the ball twice, sure, maybe we could have ran the ball there, at least on 2nd down. I'm cool with that, but I'll be real with you guys. If the answer that we end up getting is I trusted 15 to make a play and it didn't happen, I can live with that personally just because of how well he has done, if that kind of makes sense what I'm saying. If that's the option we're going to go with is, hey, we need a play, we're going to put it in 15's hands and see what happens. I personally can live with that until proven otherwise.
The offensive approach, second half compared to first half, points in the first half, second half been limited. What stands out to you going all the way back to Colorado?
I think what happened at Colorado, and I think that was kind of a different situation, but I do still have my eyes on it. I think what happened with Colorado, and even UTEP for that matter, but I'll just focus on Colorado, is like, hey, we're up 28 points. We're just going to try and run the football. I came on here that Monday and kind of was questioning it, but then I listened to Satterfield and Rule talk about it throughout the week, and my opinion slightly shifted on that of like, okay, I see what I can live with what they were doing. That was obviously not the situation on Saturday, but I do think that those aren't exactly apples to apples comparisons, if that makes sense. I think part of the offensive troubles on Friday night, I think it was just, I mean, we hear Rule talk about it all the time, right? Playing complementary football, offense helping defense, defense helping offense. There was not very much help on defense. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think Nebraska had a ton of opportunities in the second half. I went back and looked yesterday, but they didn't have a ton of drives yet in the second half. Now, obviously, leaving points on the board with that field goal was huge. Having a couple punts, obviously not ideal. But if you get your offense out there, they have to punt, and then the defense is out there for 6-7 minutes. That puts a lot of pressure on your offense when they get back out there. So I know this sounds maybe kind of weird to some listeners, but I'd say part of the offensive struggles were a little bit because of the defense, if that makes any sense, if you can wrap your head around it.
Yeah, I think Dylan, and this isn't on Dylan, but I'm using him because he's the leader of that offense. They needed to stay on the field a little bit longer. Because I thought that defense in the second half was starting to get gassed, and Nebraska just didn't have the ball. That's the defense not able to get off the field and give the ball back to the offense. We'll get you out on this because back to Dylan, and if that's his fourth game in college as a true freshman, the future is bright. Kid's a difference maker. NFL throws, easy arm strength. He'll have his freshman moment here or there, but I'll take all of those to get the upside of Rola. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about his wide receivers. With the caveat, Ben, that I think Illinois' defensive backs are really good. There's a couple of guys who are going to play on Sunday, including Xavier Scott. But the fact that they're willing, if I have a guy that is like Rola as a trigger man, the fact that I am willing to stick to man-to-man with the wide receivers and maybe inch a couple of guys into the box, what does that say to you about how oppositions approach Nebraska's wide receiver talent?
I think that it really just shows that we haven't really established that ability to connect on some real deep shots. I think it shows that throughout the first few games, like we've shown, like, hey, our game plan is to try and run the football, and we're going to beat you over the top once you fully commit to that. Well, we weren't able to do it. And I do think, kind of talking more about like some of the things Satterfield did, like, hey, I'll come in on here and point out, like, I don't think through the first 3 weeks, Satterfield just forgot how to use Thomas Spadoni. I think that was being saved a little bit. And I think that in some instances, we showed some real big bright spots with that. There were some very beautiful play calls on when we run some sort of nub trips look, and we got slants in a corner on the backside. And some of those things looked really good. But at the same time, like, we just weren't able to capitalize enough. And I think part of that is like Illinois' DBs were playing very well, and they were very confident. And I'll come on here and be the first to say I underestimated Illinois defensively more than I probably should. Especially in the passing game. I wrote on the blog on the NBNR podcast that preseason on August 16th, I predicted Illinois to end up winning the game, and that sucked that I was correct on that. But I put they were a good tackling team. They're going to come in and try and shut down the run. All this pressure on Nebraska. I hate that I was correct on that, but I did not give them enough credit in their defensive passing game. That was something that I think I'd like to see some more. I like to see some more production out of our offense against passing games, particularly because, hey, it's the Big Ten. We're going to see some good defenses. Like, this is going to be a consistent theme that we're going to see good defenses. So I do think that, hey, we got to figure out the offense a little bit. I don't think the offense was as big of a red flag, but I do think not. Like you said, like last year when teams completely committed to the run, we at least a few times beat them pretty deep. That did not happen on Friday night, like on consistent big deep shots. So that is something to at least keep our eye on. But ultimately, I have faith in 15. Like you said, there's going to be a few freshman moments, but I love this kid, and Like I said earlier here in this call of like, hey, if we're going to put the ball in 15's hands, I can live with it.
Oh, absolutely. He's a dude. I mean, at least that's when you're trying to figure everything else out, he's a guy that I think anybody in the country would start with. Ben, as always, appreciate it. Remind people again where they can find your content, because I know you already have done a lot and will do a lot leading up to Purdue.
Yes, I appreciate that. If you go to YouTube and go to the BA Coaches Show, I have a video that's going to be coming out here in the next few hours, kind of recapping the Illinois game. And if you go to nbnrpodcast.com, go to their blog, Red Zone Reflections. I write a blog on their website as well. And we just talk Nebraska football all the time because that's just kind of a thing that I do.
All right, Ben, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep, thank you.
Ben Audi joins us every Monday at 8. I hope Nebraska doesn't get into a situation where you got a luxury of 15 that you rely on him way too much.
Yeah.
That you just, hey, this isn't working today. Can you just go and make plays out of your ass?
Yeah.
To help us?
The point you brought up about the 3rd and 3, because I think it's a good point about the personnel that was on the field, because that was the first thing that I noticed there was, okay, we got Bullock, we got Borkacher, you got Lindenmeyer, and you got Liebentritt. Everything about that says they're going to, at the very least, try to set them up for a 4th and 1 if they don't get it. And then then you're in a situation where you're probably going for it there in that situation. Again, still relying on your defense, even though it had not been a good night at the office. I also think of, because, yeah, I think you're right. I think it was Borkacher coming across, and you could see that separation right as he got probably to the middle of the field, that play was there. And I'm sure if Dylan could have it back, either he'd want the throwback or go to Borkacher either way, because I think he's hitting either one of them. His game to this point, he has been so good on those high percentage, the 5 to 10 yard passes too. That's a first down, takes more clock. Even if you are reduced to a situation where you got to attempt a field goal, at least it's not a 39 yard or more makeable, all those things. But to the point about the 4th down, this is where, okay, you fail once with 15. Are you going to fail again compared to a running game that had been 1.2 yards for the game itself, and then you look at your kicking situation, hasn't been good. I know John Hall hit a chip shot earlier, but that's the decision right there that you're thinking, okay, whose hands would you rather have the football in this situation, even on a 4th down and 3? And then you bring up a point, because I think this is a good one that people, to put numbers next to it. So you mentioned offense probably needed to be on the field a lot more in the second half. And you're right, and I'll tell you that difference. You know this already, but 45 plays ran in the first half for this offense. If you don't count overtime, 23 plays. 5 of those was a touchdown drive, but 23 plays to 45 in the first half. Half of what they did in the first half offensively, in being able to convert 3rd downs, because both teams were converting 3rd downs at a high clip, but it was in the second half when Nebraska failed to do it as much. I think that's a big part of at least this game, because I would agree, not all second half offensive outputs that have not gone for Nebraska are the same. I think you nailed it on that one, where they needed to be on the field a lot more, and I think they had the ability to score more. But again, when you're not converting 3rd downs like you were in the first half, that's a big problem right there. And then you put it on the defense, which was just, they were owned in that game.
Yeah, I think Nebraska in the first 2 weeks forced 7 3-and-outs. They've now forced 8 for the entire season.
Yeah.
Evan Bland for the World Herald will join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy on 1620 The Zone, wherever you can get us, the YouTube, the Twitch, the stream, the 1620 The Zone TV, because you're about to hear from Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, from when you left Memorial Stadium late Friday night into early Saturday morning and how you felt about the game and what you wrote about the game, has much changed now that you've maybe gone back and looked at your notes or rewatched the game, how you're feeling on Monday morning?
Well, I think in the moment it felt like the defense left a lot on the field, and that was the reaction from players. Like they were pretty disappointed in the moment. And, I think that probably still is the area where the game got away. I mean, everyone's going to talk about the overthrow to Lindenmeyer that could have flipped things. Some of maybe the first half penalties, the no call on the pass interference in the end zone where Nebraska settled for a field goal, and then the 50-50 ball that was a touchdown overturned into an interception. Mm-hmm. I get that there were some things the offense left out there, but to me, it was the defensive side of things, and it was a lot of man coverages that busted, and we saw that on a couple of Illinois touchdowns. It was not being able to contain a mobile quarterback at all times who was able to run for yardage and extend plays. It was a lot of those kind of things. It was tackling, kind of the same issues that came up against Northern Iowa a week ago. So I think to me, that's still the thing you look at this week and say, this is the part of the Nebraska football team that you kind of felt like was sort of a given 3 weeks ago. Like this is the anchor. And then, hey, if the offense comes along and special teams comes along, then maybe things get fun. I don't think people thought, and including me, that like the defense would be the phase of the game that didn't go well for Nebraska. So I think it was a second straight week where they were just a little leaky. They did bust on some assignments. You hear post game about guys working through stuff in that realm, and it kind of reminded me of past seasons a little bit where Nebraska defenders were searching for answers. So I'll be curious to hear from Matt Rule today and from Tony White and some defenders as the week goes on about how they fix some of that. But yeah, I think to me that was probably the most disappointing part was some of the missed assignments. And then as Matt Rule himself said afterwards, it didn't seem like Nebraska was the more physical team for a lot of that game. And I know that's something they pride themselves on, and that's something that I think as much as anything they were surprised about Friday night.
Evan, is there something to be said about having some of these red flags against Northern Iowa, but still only letting 3 points up on the scoreboard as opposed to having major breakdowns against a team that had a really good game plan and actually losing the football game, that there's still enough on that side of the football, both coaching and personnel-wise, that you still feel confident that maybe this turns into a major teaching moment where Nebraska defensively can get back to a standard that they're holding themselves to?
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, it could. Everyone likes the term "wake-up call," and it kind of is that. Maybe this is. You had the alarm last week, and you have the bucket of water to the face this week. Maybe it's that kind of a difference, because for a lot of those first three games, Nebraska could rely on superior talent and superior depth. And Illinois. I mean, that's a good team. That's a good. It's a well-coached group. It's Big Ten athletes. It's a program that has an NIL operation, so like in a lot of ways they are peers. And one of the impressions I had walking down to the post-game interviews Friday night was like the things that went wrong for Nebraska were things that we talked about in the first three games as being issues, but things that, were sort of footnotes because they won the games and they won the games going away. So I think of, third down offense. You think of defensive penalties. You think of, some of those moments on special teams, especially where you're wondering about the kicking game. Like all those things they didn't just pop up Friday night for the first time. We'd seen those play out. But again, you get into a close game situation and all that stuff matters all the more. So, how does Nebraska now respond after a loss? It is a different sort of vibe. You're probably going to be a little bit more, extreme maybe in your response in terms of potentially personnel, maybe scheme, whatever it might be. I would imagine, yeah. I mean, they're in the stretch now. Nebraska is where they're playing some teams that, in terms of where they are kind of in the Big Ten pecking order, these are their peers. And so Purdue, I think, still fits that category. Rutgers certainly does. Indiana. So it's a big stretch for Nebraska to figure itself out and to try to, find a way to shore some of this up so that these close games start going their way.
Besides inserting a giant human being at 6'5", 325 pounds who's from Philadelphia, is there a fix for this running game moving forward?
Well, I mean, it doesn't help when you're on your third string left tackle with Corcoran out, and of course Teddy Prohaska's been out since the preseason. So you've had Gunnar Gatula in there. I'll be curious to see how they look at that offensive line, what Matt Rule says about that today, because in theory you could move somebody who's been on the interior out to the edge. You could move, Mazuka or Justin Evans or even Lutovsky out into the edge, or you could roll with Gatula as well. So that's kind of the first step, I think, is figuring out how you want to realign your offensive line, especially if Corcoran's out long term and it didn't look like a great injury. And beyond that, I think you got to figure out your running back rotation. And to me, that was a game Friday night where I would like to see Emmett Johnson a little bit more. He has fresh legs. He's explosive. It did seem like the ground game kind of ran aground, so to speak, especially in the second half. Why not bring in a guy who's sort of a live wire and who has pretty good vision on the field and finding those creases and where the opening is? Dowdell had his moments, but that seemed like more of an Emmett Johnson sort of moment where you didn't necessarily want to go head to head with Illinois' front seven and try to plow through them, but maybe you could go around them and scheme it up a little bit. So I think being judicious in who's taking the carries, when those carries are happening, and then kind of figuring out the offensive line. I mean, that's where I would start with that. We know Nebraska's not going to run Dylan Rola. I think that's a smart move outside of maybe once or twice per game just to show them something different. So it's going to have to be more conventional. I think that's one of the big questions that this team's going to have to answer now, especially that they're into Big Ten play, is can they move the ball consistently on the ground? Because the crutch for Nebraska forever has been running the quarterback in those situations. If you really need something on 3rd and 3, the chances are pretty good that it was going to be Heinrich Harburg or Adrian Martinez or whomever was going to be running the ball. So can they do that in a more conventional manner that's efficient enough? It remains to be seen.
The offense, again, looking at some positives, encouragement to see Thomas Fidone get downfield and be a part of the passing game. Is that something you think there is going to be a concerted effort to continue to get him down there and have him one of those playmakers on top of what we saw from Banks and Naylor?
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's more than capable. I mean, we're on World Herald Row on Friday night. We were up there, and there were moments where we're just like, okay, this is a Fidone moment, right? Like 3rd and short, 2nd and intermediate, and it's like this is a moment where Fidone can go down the field 10 yards and turn around and high point a ball like that. He's built to do that, and I think Nebraska, they kind of experimented with him making plays out of the backfield, and his strength is not the explosive quickness that's going to stretch a play at the line of scrimmage. His strength is going downfield, being a big target, going up and getting it, and they did use him, I think, in that way more against Illinois than they have at any previous point this season. And so, yeah, I mean, you combine that with what Jamal Banks showed and Isaiah Nayor. I mean, those guys looked like dudes on Friday night. They were big-bodied, sure-handed, made themselves open, made themselves a target. So, yeah, I think Fidone offers that. He's always been kind of that safety blanket for quarterbacks. And I think Nebraska started showing that they could use him in that way a little bit more. Interestingly, I heard from fans a few times over the weekend saying, why not have Fidone be that guy in the Luke Lindenmeyer spot late in the game? And I don't know that, Illinois would have defended that play the same way if Fidone was in that situation. So it was deceptive and it worked because it was Lindenmeyer in that 3rd spot. So, they're working through that, but I do think, yes, that they're kind of figuring out Fidoni's role in this offense, and that's an area certainly of growth here in the next couple of months.
All right, this is the weekly required question. What do you do with special teams as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, what in season? I mean, what do you do? I mean, your specialists are kind of who they are, and as we saw, for everyone clamoring for someone other than Tristan Alvano, we saw how the pressure can crop up late in the game. Like, and then we've talked about that for weeks. Like, what's that going to look like when Nebraska needs a kick to tie a game or go ahead? And we saw they couldn't make a kick from inside 40. And, it doesn't mean John Hall's a bad kicker. It means he's a young guy who hasn't been in that situation before. And so, like, it puts your coaches in a tough spot where conventional wisdom says in that situation, kick the field goal, play defense, and win the game or go to overtime potentially. And they couldn't do it. And so, like, it's going to affect your decision making moving forward. It has to. So I don't know what you do at those kicking spots. As we kind of said, like, either you expect your guy to make it or not. Like, the coaches can't really do much more once those guys are on the field. The return game I actually think has been pretty decent. I think Ja'Cory Barney's a big return waiting to happen most of the time. I think Garcia Castaneda has breathed life into the punt return game, certainly more than Nebraska had last season and a lot of recent seasons. But to me, it comes down to the specialists, and Nebraska's consistently coming up on the short end of the field position battle, net punting, and obviously the kicking situation. It really makes you uncomfortable. Anytime Nebraska's kicking anything from outside of 30 yards, it's an adventure, and that's not where you need to be, and that's not going to be helpful in these tight games in the Big Ten coming up. So I'm sure they'll say there's open competition again this week, but I don't know what you're going to learn in the next 5 days that's any different from what they tracked and recorded in the previous 3 months. So I think maybe it comes down to potentially managing the game a little bit different. That's really the only thing I can think of where you could adjust.
Hey, Evan, we did see in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, Dylan got a little sloppy with the football. Those could have been disastrous moments, and it was kind of uncharacteristic of him. Is there something to be said about how that game was trending and the emphasis and the importance of being able to get points on the board and knowing what the defense was unable to do? Is there a feeling that Gary mentioned this earlier, not about that exact moment or moments, but that maybe there was a little bit more pressure on Dylan, that there was, maybe he's taking on himself to feel like he had to make certain plays. And again, you get caught up in that a little bit. You're feeling that a little bit. And sometimes you get a little careless with either decision-making or even just something as simple as handling the football.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And Matt Rule kind of alluded to it in his comments afterwards, this idea that, all they want you to do is go out and do your part. And if you start going beyond that, you're working outside the scheme or you're trying to play hero ball. And I think he was speaking broadly, not necessarily just about Rola, but like, then that's when you get into trouble. And I think you think of some of the Nebraska teams in the past few years, like that happened a lot where guys wanted it so badly that they kind of went above and beyond what they were supposed to do. And it ended up actually undermining the effort. So, I think part of it in the fourth quarter was Illinois gaining confidence, figuring out what they were doing. Certainly in overtime, Nebraska, they went one dimensional, especially after the penalty to start their part of the overtime. Like you kind of knew that it was going to be a passing situation. And so when Nebraska goes one dimensional like that, Illinois had the guys up front and they had the veterans on the back end to make Nebraska pay. And so I think it was a reminder that, Nebraska's key is going to have to be still playing complementary football. They're not so talented that they can just say, yeah, we're going to pass it. And we're going to, go downfield with our former 5-star. And that's going to be that. I think it was a reminder that the defenses in the Big Ten are good. They're well coached. They're paying attention to tendencies. They know, what the limits are in your players, what they can do. And so, it was I think a cold reminder to Nebraska in overtime that, like, yeah, their offense is certainly improved, but when the opponent knows what's coming and they've had a whole game to kind of go up against you, it can get pretty ugly going the other way. So I think they have some, potentially some protection issues to work through. And it was that first reminder or first experience from Dylan Raiola too of a loss. So how they bounce back from it, that's the key to me. Like, I think people were so upset on Friday night in part because there's this assumption based on past years that, like, well, that means 5-7's incoming or 6-6. But to me, the great question under this staff is, can this team actually get better? You hear a lot of the comparisons to like the volleyball side. You get swept against SMU, but you come back and you beat the number 2 team in the country a couple weeks later. Can Nebraska's football side channel that a little bit to where you have a disappointing loss like this early in the year, but can this be a springboard to something better and not a sign that things are going to unravel?
We are 11 a.m. on Saturday. We'll start to answer some of those questions. Evan, safe travels out to West Lafayette. I know you've told us in the past it might be one of your favorite spots in the entire Big Ten.
Worst road trip in the Big Ten.
No.
Oh, I might have been off then.
Piscataway? Well, I guess at least you can go in the city there. Never mind.
All right. We appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
I think why media don't like the trip to West Lafayette. Well, one, like the parking, you have to be shuttled in on a golf cart to the press box,
which is fun.
Like you park like 3 miles away.
Who doesn't like a good golf cart ride though? It's fun. Get a little air in the hair.
Yeah.
No.
Each their own, I guess.
And the press facility, right, for post game is essentially, is it outdoors?
The last time Nebraska was there, it was not ideal.
Yeah. It's like a tent or something. Yeah. I've heard, so this is coming from Mike Schaefer, who, looks at more the experience of not just the game and the amenities that you have at the game, but also what the college town has to offer. He said West Lafayette is not a bad one. Now that is one of the Big Ten venues I have not been to.
Whenever I've gone, I've only stayed in Lafayette. Now Mackey Arena is pretty cool. And the football, like you walk out the back door of Mackey Arena and there's the football stadium and then there's a football facility. It's okay. I mean, it looks like a Big Ten campus. Just feels like an 11 a.m. game all the time.
Yes.
And it's going to be gray. It's going to be cloudy.
I feel like every time, whether it was the Riker Fife game, oh my God, that game in 2019, was it? That Nebraska had every opportunity to win and did not. I feel like it's always overcast and just that way.
Yeah, chance of rain, they say, but they also said it was going to rain yesterday in this town.
All weekend.
Coming up after the top of the hour, Jacob Bigalow stops by on 1620 The Zone.
Officially the most wonderful time of year. Vallis season. Vallis is open now through November 3rd and has family fun you know and love, including 2 new rides, Freya's Egg Spinners and the Tim's Runaway Grain Train. Don't forget about delicious foods like pies, caramel apples, kettle corn, turkey legs, and more. Listen to Unsportsmanlike Conduct every afternoon for your chance to win a pair of passes.
Celebrating 40 years is Vallis.
Yeah, that is an American success story right there.
This is also an American success story. It's a huge day for sports writers and sports broadcasters across the country.
Springsteen's going to be on TV.
Celebrating his 75th birthday
There
today.
you go.
All those
Everybody loves Springsteen.
all those Northwestern and Syracuse alums and Dirk Chatelain. This is a huge day for you because the boss is now 75 years old.
I'm thinking of my man Rob Sternberg. Used to be with the Omaha Storm Chasers. Biggest Springsteen fan I've ever known. He doesn't get overly excited about much, but that was the one thing that he would just geek out over is the boss.
Seen him 3 times in concert. It is
the boss and one's golf game. That's the bingo game.
He'll play for a while. Saw him at Dodger Stadium. The first time I ever saw him was at Dodger Stadium, and he played for nearly 3 hours.
Damn!
And I think it was probably because he's in L.A.
Yeah.
And so he played a lot of his catalog.
When's the last time you saw him?
Not this tour that he's on now, but the tour
Okay,
previously.
so you saw him recently.
Yeah, so he comes to
It's
Omaha
time
quite often.
for the boss.
Yeah.
Not quite.
I'm amazed when guys and gals for that matter, entertainers, when they are at that age and they almost put on a longer show than they did when they were in their prime.
They play
too.
their hits. It's great.
Yeah.
You get your money's worth. I'd go see them.
I was fortunate enough though to see him when Clarence Clemens was around.
When was that?
That was the first time.
So was this you were relatively young then?
No. I mean, when Clarence Clemens, he hasn't been with him for a little bit. But it's not like it's been 25 years.
Oh, okay.
He saw him in 77.
I saw him at Dodger Stadium in 2000. Who was I with?
This is how we remember things.
Not judging.
No.
Totally.
No.
It's probably been about 15 years.
That seems long, but it's not.
I used to do my CDs autobiographically.
That's one entertainer. So I'm happy I've seen Billy Joel and John Elton. You know John Elton?
Cover band.
Elton John and Billy Joel together.
That'd be a great cover band.
John Elton and Joel Billy. That was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen, especially when they started off doing the dueling pianos. I still would love to see Billy Joel solo. I wish I could have seen him at MSG. That would have been pretty sweet too. But the boss would be up there. Never saw him. Never have.
I could have gone to Tom Petty. Actually, I think it was here.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, about 15, 16 years ago, and wasn't able to swing it. Big regret.
Wasn't that right
I couldn't
after?
tell you what I couldn't swing it for.
Wasn't he here right after his Super Bowl performance?
I think so. I think it was 08.
Because then I know shortly after JT performed the Super Bowl.
He was the Quest, I think. So yeah.
He was in Omaha or shortly after. And then I think even Bruno Mars. It's almost like when they do the Super Bowl, then they hit up Omaha like within the next few months. It's just a thing they do.
Yeah, because the COVID Super Bowl, the weekend.
The weekend, yep.
So he had to postpone because he's gonna kick off his tour here.
Yep.
A weird halftime show.
Is that a thing? They do the Super Bowl and then they just come to Omaha?
Yeah.
Part of the contract?
What I've been told is Omaha. So I'm going to flex here for a moment.
Do it.
My friends with the Zach Brown band, which they have kicked off their actual tour in Lincoln a couple of times. He said that the venues that they play in, whether it be the Chi or PBA, usually they can get about 6 days where they can rehearse, so they can practice things before putting on opening night. So that's why like Lincoln and Omaha are popular. I think Taylor Swift kicked off the Red Tour here because she came in and rehearsed for like 6 or 7 days. And so they tried different things and they let them use the Chi.
Oh, nice.
And then she was here for, I think she did a couple shows.
That would make sense. Why?
Up with People here 3 times in the 70s after they did the Super Bowl.
I don't think Trans-Siberian Orchestra is ever going to be doing the
try and
Super
find
Bowl.
the
But
set list for that one.
but that's what Trans-Siberian Orchestra always goes to Lincoln. And, I should say now in Omaha.
Although they
But
go to Council Bluffs.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mid-America Center.
Does they have availability over there? They just set up and they practice?
I think it's like their training camp.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's like their training camp. They have like a month of just working out all the quirks.
And then scrimmage.
And then they... That would be amazing. Dueling shows, Mannheim Steamroller versus Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Oh,
I'd go watch.
It's like a red-white game right
How
there.
does 1890 get involved? All right, Jacob Bigelow is next. All right, here is Bruce Springsteen fan, Jacob Bigelow. Joins us now from Huskers Illustrated. True or not?
True, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody in basketball is a Boss fan.
I mean, I'm not as proud as some people are, but no, I definitely can enjoy a Bruce tune every now and again. So yeah, happy 75th birthday to the boss.
Do you worship his entire catalog?
I do not. I don't. I've listened to a good majority of it, but I don't think I am I'm not worshiping very many artists' entire catalog, let alone just one guy. So, but I keep it pretty diverse with my music. So,
all right. So Nebraska couldn't get up in the evening on Friday night. Why do you think that was the case?
That's an excellent question, right? I mean, I still, this is obviously I write for a magazine that's a Nebraska magazine, but my first takeaway was how impressed I was with Illinois on Friday night. I just thought that was my biggest takeaway going through post game, I was going through overtime. Was Illinois, and then I went back and I watched bits and pieces of the game on Saturday morning, and it was just I don't want to say perplexing, but I mean it kind of, part of it reminded me of the Colorado game last year where they were just getting chunked to death, and then the dam finally broke. I mean, the dam never broke on Friday night, but I mean, they were just getting chunked to death over and over again, and that's credit to Illinois skill position players and their quarterback looking a lot better than I thought he would. But also, obviously there are questions to be asked about Nebraska's defense going forward.
Defensively, okay, perfect place to go there. Are you concerned, somewhat concerned, or not concerned at all of what you've seen from that defense in the last 2 weeks?
I mean, I'm somewhat concerned, but then again, I also, I had questions about the defense coming into the year, which I don't think most did. I mean, I had questions on, guys who may have overachieved last year that were back for another year. I had questions on a year of tape on a somewhat unique defense, and I mean, I had some questions. So I'm somewhat concerned, but I mean, I'm not sounding the alarm or slamming the panic button either. But there's concern to be had.
So personnel or style on defense?
A little bit of both. I definitely think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think your known commodities, right? They're the two big guys in the middle on the defensive line. You've seen flashes from Jamari Butler on the edge, and then there's been a lot of talk about about your number one corner being a Sunday guy, and he was in street clothes at the end of the game. And Sire Wright, played pretty well, filling into that role. But I mean, I think he's earned being a known commodity now would be John Bullock, just for being everywhere and forcing that turnover against stripping the ball out. I think he's earned being a known commodity just for being a ball player. But I think other than that, I definitely have questions with personnel, and there's a lot of quantity, but is there a lot of quality outside of the known commodities that you've got? And then I will have questions about the style, as and it's not just because of the 3-3-5, but I mean, the whole create havoc, you're taking plenty of risks if you're in my opinion. And then again, I'm not Mr. Football, but I'll always have questions about that being your base defense.
What you saw and what you have seen from Dylan Raiola, and then going through some adversity Friday night, encouraged by this part of the learning process early on, going through that adversity, even though it came in a loss, that we're almost kind of excited to see what he takes away from this last weekend and see how he kind of moves forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not be encouraged. I mean, obviously the loss, feels like a gut punch to guys on the team, to to a fan base that was charged up and still packed the stadium for a Friday night game, and there was a lot lot of enthusiasm, going into Friday night, and then the result was the result. But I mean, I don't think the result is the result because of Dylan Raiola. I mean, I think he still played pretty well, and the drive in overtime is what a bunch of people will point to. But I mean, I don't think that how it went, and them ended up having a 3rd and 42 from their own 43-yard line. I don't think that falls squarely on Dylan Raiola. I think Illinois saw a window to send the house on a couple straight plays, and the pressure got home, and it started with the false start. And we don't need to go play by play, but I mean, I think it's tough to not be encouraged by what you've seen from a true freshman quarterback who is still that was his 4th college game, and there was still a lot to like, some Sunday throws, and so there's still plenty to like for we've said it as much, a true freshman in his 4th game. It's hard to not be encouraged.
Jacob Bigalow joining us here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. All right, you can't start a fire if you don't convert on 3rd and 3. So 4th down and 3, what would you have done? And then do you think Nebraska was thinking about 4th down when they called that 3rd down play?
We're talking about the Lindenmeyer play,
yes.
Right? I mean, I like I mean, you can see what they were doing. They have, it looks like they have guys in the block, so it looks like a run, and Illinois defended it like expecting a run play, and there's a guy streaking open in the end zone, and I don't know if he was surprised to be as open as he was or not. It kind of looked like that standing on the field. I don't know. I think they were probably thinking about 4th down. I don't know if with the way your special teams situation is, I don't know how you couldn't be thinking about 4th down. When with how the run game had not really found any pop. I think they had to be thinking about it, and then I think just in the end they wanted to trust their defense one way or another, either to get the hold it and go to OT, or to just finish off a win after you make a field goal. I'm a gambler, so I probably would have gone for it on 4th down, given the special teams situation. But that's why I'm not a football coach.
Places out, Dan.
Which, by the way, is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought the long snapper situation was fixed the week before. He didn't actually kick it right on the laces, but the fact that the laces were staring right at the holder is friggin' ridiculous.
Yeah, you don't see that.
I mean, I don't understand special teams, how it's just faux pas after faux pas of things that, you're told to kick it one way and you kick it opposite of where the coverage is. Yep. So that's a return. So instead of putting your defense on the football field where they're going to defend a team that is inside their own 20, they're out near midfield. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the fact that Nebraska football in the last 3 years can't find a consistent place kicker, someone to stay healthy, or someone just where I can go inside of 40, I got a pretty good shot. Now I'm wondering, is my only faith is inside a 25-yard field goal?
Yeah. Well, and
fix the kicking, Jacob.
And Jacob, on that note too, because all of that is 100% a major problem that I think we were all hopeful was going to be at least better. It doesn't have to be amazing, but just better than it had been. What you've seen from special teams, with what you've seen from some of the teams that do remain on Nebraska's schedule, especially in the upcoming games, does that area, because I don't remember what you predicted for the season as far as wins and losses, but does that area make you rethink what the end result for this season is for Nebraska?
It definitely can, and I think my biggest thing that I've learned, that I think about special teams is the most mental phase of football, because in a way it's supposed to be the most straightforward, right? Kickoff return, punt return, kick coverage, field goals, extra points. It's supposed to seem like it's the most straightforward, but a lot of it is mental, and it is frustrating that it continues to be faux pas after faux pas, whether it be long snapping, or whether it be, this people believing that kicking problems are solved because a guy made one kick in that stadium in a state final, and therefore anytime you cross midfield, you're in that guy's range going forward because of that one kick. It is pretty frustrating, looking at what should be the most straightforward phase of the football game. It's hard not to, right? It's hard not to think that, that could, directly, cost Nebraska a game. And it's tough to not think about that. I don't think that, Friday night's result means that the sky is falling and that Nebraska is a terrible football team and that we need to reevaluate, everything from top to bottom. But there are certainly, questions to ask, and special teams remains 1A and 1B, in my opinion, in terms of, questions.
So the messages keep getting clearer that Nebraska has the stigma in close games that they make dumbfounding plays or it just doesn't go their way. They don't create breaks. They don't take advantage of breaks. And so the past still looks like the present. And the next thing you know, the head football coach at Nebraska is 1-6 in one-score games. And there were moments that you thought, here we go, strip sack. Got the ball. And like, this Nebraska's being Nebraska again. What will it take for Nebraska to get over the hump and not only win one, but start to stack one-score wins and then beat teams that have numbers in front of their names? Because I'm not going to recite the numbers to you, because I think if you're a Nebraska fan, you know those like none other. You know those better than you know the names of your kids' names. But what will it take to get over this and become Tennessee? Again, not Tennessee of what they are right now, but Tennessee made the turn when they started to win games like Friday night for Nebraska.
Yeah, you don't know what you got. I wish I had an answer that doesn't sound like cliche, like coach speak, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be a football coach, because that's the last thing I'd want to be. But you just have to. You just have to. You just have to do it on the field, like plain simple. You just have to go out and do it and do your job and finish. And you have to do it. You got to get over the mental hump one way or another. It's not rocket science. It's not. Nebraska football over the last 10 years has made it look like rocket science. That's for damn sure. But it's just got to happen one way or another. And when you know, and it breaks the stigma or the whatever ill will or ill fate you may think has been thrust upon you. You in a way, you just got to go out and do it and do your job and finish. I know that sounds corny as hell and beyond cliche, but I don't have an equation or rocket science, to get you over that hump.
Jacob, to switch it over to some news that came off the hardwood last week, did you have Big Ten schedule overreaction at all?
I did not personally, but I did, take a look at it. We got the yearly reminder that schedule reveal shows are pretty dumb. We were reminded that.
Come on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We need more of them.
Agreed.
Hey, if your office is in the same, if your office is in the same building as a Fogo de Chao, you think they're awesome. But if it's not, you can see how trivial they are. But I definitely took a gander at it, and hoops will be here before we know it.
You excited for this week? Because practice starts this week.
Yeah, practice does start this week. A week from tomorrow, I'm getting on a plane to go to Chicago for Big Ten Media Days. So there is some, palpable excitement in my world for sure.
All right, that's good. I wasn't there on Friday. What shirt were we wearing?
It got good reviews. It was one of the only shirt it was one of the Bad Birdie golf shirts. It was blue with some pink in it. And it got good reviews.
It's a gender reveal shirt.
I'm sure you would have dragged me over the coals if you were there, but it was but it got good reviews.
Would
do you do this a lot?
If you
there was no selfie on Instagram.
Yeah, Gary, why are you so harsh on his fit?
All I said is that I saw Jacob coming from Seacrest Field. So on a scale of you would be accepted, you would be shunned, or you'd be allowed to run for condo president, if you were wearing that shirt at Del Boca Vista, how would it have been received?
Sign me up.
I think I would have been accepted. I don't think I would have been shunned. I think I would have been accepted.
Okay.
Those are my future people.
That's fair.
Phase 3.
That's fair. All right. Have a good week. Enjoy the start of basketball practice. The first game is 6 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, don't say that too loud. People will get mad. But no, I'll try to enjoy it to the best of my ability, and I appreciate the time like always, guys.
Thank you, Jacob. No, I think people are accepting of that. Nebraska's a volleyball school. Basketball starts 6 weeks from tonight. Moved on from football. 3-1. Season's over. We had a good run.
Tell me when basketball starts.
Put together a 3-game winning streak. Man, that Rola kid looks pretty good. I wonder if he'll stick around for next year. Oh, wait a minute. His brother just committed. Huh. Maybe Dylan will stick around because he'd like to have his brother on the same roster in a couple of years. I don't know. I'm not in that family, but I think that's pretty cool.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. I think that'll be fun.
A left-handed quarterback committing to Nebraska.
Scotty Mitchell.
Run.
Why do I always go to Scott Mitchell? That is a childhood memory. No.
1994
played against Nebraska, but didn't play for Nebraska.
Yeah, I can't get that. I can't get the Scotty Mitchell Detroit Lions image out of my head.
Led them to the playoffs.
Certain things just stick with you when you're young. That one will never leave me.
Is the last left-handed quarterback to throw for a touchdown in Nebraska Mike Stunts?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
There's a good trivia question.
Right. That is a good trivia question. Yeah.
Save that for Wednesday.
There's just something. I mean, I was a left-handed quarterback. The ball comes out weird. I had like a sideways spiral. It's like more like this instead of just straight on, point to point. Maybe I just threw it wrong.
I have a request because I'm trying to do this while we're on the air. Does anybody have the stats of Nebraska's field goal kicking since 2018 in one-score games?
Oh, my God, no. I don't.
I'm curious. I'm asking for a friend.
I'd like to look this up.
73.
There you go. There's a research.
Is that
project.
it?
No.
Okay.
Throwing a number out there.
That's really bad.
2 for 73.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
All right.
I don't think it's that.
That's why we just have to cancel kicking.
I'm no Bob Devaney, just on the entertainment side. But if Nebraska in one-score games is 2 for 73, I will tell you what the problem is.
I think I've diagnosed it.
Also, I'll tell you what a problem is that needs to be fixed this weekend, and maybe Purdue comes along at the right time. It's all about points, ma'am. It's all about points. You realize Nebraska has not scored 30 or more against a Power 4/Power 5 team since they last played Purdue.
Oh, yeah.
All about points. How about scoring some points? Speaking of nuggets, about second half, the Go Big Red Junkies podcast, good podcast. Listen to those guys are fun. They have some nuggets about the difference between first and second half. Let's see, third down conversion, points per play. There's another one I saw on a tweet yesterday. People are adjusting. We'll see if Nebraska adjusts because it's kind of startling. I know a little bit in there is the backups played, but its reality is Nebraska in the second half offensively, they don't have the same crispness. They can finish the first half. Yeah. Rola has been great in 2-minute drills at the end of a first half. But what happens during the second half, and especially when you come out of the locker room and you get the football and you have a chance to step on somebody's throat when you're up 7 and you can make it 14, why can't that happen? What's the disconnect? All right, 9:25. Quick break. Come back with more Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone. All right, so in the Chiefs game last night against the Falcons, they highlighted Carson Steele, and they showed his family from his sister's wedding watching the Chiefs-Falcons game.
Oh, is that what that was? Okay, I had the sound off at one point because there was stuff going on. Yeah. Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So did his sister not have any faith that her brother was going to make an NFL roster with the Kansas City Chiefs?
So she just said, hey, let's just do this.
Now, I don't want to say fall weddings are a bad idea because they're from Indiana.
Oh, they're tricky.
And so it's basketball.
Yeah.
Like they say, hey, no weddings between November and March.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do one in September? My question is, I got married on a Friday, save a little money. Also, the venues we wanted.
Same.
It was better on Friday. We had more availability. I don't know that I've heard of many people that got married on a Sunday.
I was at one. Schaefer was there too. It wasn't his wedding.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, his was on a Saturday. Yeah, it was out in Chicago. That's the only one I've ever been to. And from what I know, it was a very nice venue, but they saved a lot of money.
Eberflus's house. It's nice.
It was like late summer, right before we got into football season. So it was well placed. It wasn't actually in fall. But yeah, Sundays are, that's a big money saver right there.
I guess I don't know anybody that's ever got married on a Sunday.
Didn't we say someone, we were talking about this not that long ago, someone, it said they got married on a Monday?
They go to the courthouse?
No, it was like an actual ceremony and stuff.
Well, I mean, if you're a big fan of Monday Night Football, it'd be kind of cool. Get married on a Monday night.
You do it right before the game, and then the receptions is revolved around Monday Night Football with a theme.
What if you showed up at a church service on Sunday and it actually was a wedding inside of the church service? Would you be excited?
They just sneak in there.
Like just two randos are getting married that you don't know who they are?
Yeah, they're like, and folks, for all of you that would like to stick around for another 5 minutes, we are going to have a wedding ceremony too.
John writes into the Equitable Bank inbox about special teams. It's time for Ed to make X videos of where he is eating full time. Special teams play is inexcusable.
I don't know how you guys felt about this, but you said this earlier in the show when they missed that throw to Lindenmeyer. You're thinking, uh-oh. When they lined up for the field goal, I was thinking, uh-oh. Because honestly, I thought, well, they might go for it here in fourth down. When they lined up for the field goal, there's part of you that's thinking, okay, this has got to change at some point. Like their luck and just the overall kicking has to change. Wasn't as much known about John Hull as far as game situations of you thinking, okay, well, maybe the guy can deliver a 39-yard field goal, very makeable field goal, and then that happens. And I think all of these one-score games and all these things that you're just trying to get over right now, they all have different parameters. They involve different players for the most part too. But having that feeling because of the past is something that I just don't think will go away for a lot of people. And I know I felt that when they lined up for that field goal. I'm thinking, I don't like this. I don't feel good about this. And heaven forbid it actually, now this would mean you'd have to score points in the overtime. Heaven forbid it came down to that in overtime, probably having the same feeling of, oh God.
I wonder, I would like some more discussion on this because I just want to know what the thinking was. The 3rd down and 3 play I thought was fantastic. So Illinois looked at who Nebraska had on the field and they're like, they're going to run the football.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you got 3 guys that are running wide open.
Yep.
So there were options to complete the pass and either get a first down or a touchdown. It did not happen. So I would like to know then what is the pivot of, okay, that's the play we wanted to use. Maybe we should have used that play on 2nd down, but we used it on 3rd down. We call that play because we're going for it on 4th down. I want more of the reasoning why, because then I ask questions. Do you not have faith in your offensive line that you can get a 3-yard push? And then do you not have a 4th down and 3 play on the chart where you go, this is the hey, if we get pressed this week and it's 4th down and 3 and we're going to go for it, what's your favorite play? Instead of let's put a kicker out there where we don't necessarily trust our long snapper. We don't necessarily trust our field goal. I know I'm supposed to say, hey, he's a college kicker to kick a 39-yard field goal. I mean, there's multitude of questions on what would you have done on 4th down and 3. Maybe they thought that play's going to hit a home run. We're going to get a first down. We don't have to worry about it. Now that comes back to being prepared part of
Yeah.
all of this. So that whole scenario leads me to further questions that I wonder if Rule will address it a little bit further today. It's past the point. It doesn't matter now. They lost a football game in overtime. But I'm thinking down the road, do you not have faith that you can get 3 yards? Because I'd put the ball in the hands of 15. And also, do you not have a 4th down and 3 play that you like on your chart?
And this is where it's easy to play back in the head of, okay, so he misfires on that pass and what was a good play design. And again, if you cornered Dylan and asked, would you rather have the pass to Lindenmeyer back? Because you can make that as well. Or would you want to go to Borkature on the cross route? Either way, you're getting what you want out of that. Maybe not eventually leading to a touchdown if you go to Borkature, but you're getting a touchdown to Lindenmeyer. Either way, though, you're getting the first down. You're moving yourself closer into the final score that you need. I just think, and this is what's kind of crazy because a lot of this was happening after the game, is that we're reminding ourselves of a 19-year-old quarterback and still going to have some growing pains. But what we've seen to this point, and this says a little bit about the running game too, of if you don't have a play design running the football to get 3 yards, you got something for Dylan that is going to be able to find a couple different options. And if you're able to scheme it the right way, is he going to misfire 2 times in a row? I'm going to put money on that he doesn't, just based on what we've seen, that if he makes one mistake, that he's going to come back and be able to execute on the next play, as opposed to a kicking game that has been, I guess the nice way to say, has been inconsistent. It's been wild. It's been a dumpster
Fix the
fire.
kicking, Ed.
And so,
fix the kicking, Ed, or spend a lot more time at Virginia's Cafe.
And that's the problem.
Business, bottom line business. We're talking about the same stuff. We're into year 2, 4 games in.
Mm-hmm.
Same issues.
Well, and to the point that it's almost worse.
Bad IQ on special teams.
It's worse. Because now, and this is where I'll give you credit,
but the return game is like it has promise.
But there's other issues though, weird issues, and I think you brought this up, and we were kind of joking about this after the end of last season, going into spring. Was we're really going to miss Marco Ruiz? I mean, there was, and remember that it was something that you never really even think to talk about because you take it for granted. You never talked about it because it was never a problem. Now you've got snapping issues. You mentioned how many times, especially the camera angles that we get with every football game you watch, whether it's on Saturdays or Sundays, that you get the camera angle when they replay a field goal and you see where the football is as they make contact. And then there's sometimes when the football comes off of the hold in a very odd way. They're like, I'm not sure if the guy got a piece of it or not. And then they show it, and it still wasn't any part of the laces. Sometimes that'll be a default of like, oh, maybe they got the laces. You'll see it, and it's not. So to your point about how often do you see that? So it's these maddening things that you don't even see at the high school level that are creeping up. And that's why I think if you look at the way that the schedule plays out, that there are teams on the schedule that maybe look a little bit better than what we originally had forecasted, Illinois being one of those teams. But also, you look at what Indiana's doing. I think we all knew that and feel pretty confident that Rutgers will be an extremely tough opponent. That if it comes down to that, and you cannot make a 35, 39-yard field goal, you can't do that, how that impacts what you do from second down on when you're in position to have a makeable field goal.
Injuries, key injury to your number one place kicker, an injury now to one of your tackles. I don't expect good news about 69 today. And then whatever Tommy Hill, you went from a head injury to its plantar fasciitis.
And I know that one.
That's not just get over it midweek and you're ready to play on Saturday. Now, Sierra Wright, his role could change with Hill back or not without Tommy Hill. So at least you're not taking a big fall, but injuries are starting to creep up. And when I'm looking at injuries on Friday night, the other thing I can only think of, they got to keep 15 upright.
Yep.
They have to protect 15 at all costs, because if he goes down, I don't care about the improvement of Harburg. Yeah, I don't even want to go there. But when we come back, I wonder, and again, Matt Rule speaks today. He's had a couple of days to think about it. I think he was, maybe I'm too hard saying shocked, think he was very disappointed and maybe a hint of surprised on how his team played. I wonder what it'll be like today, getting ready for Purdue. But I wonder if there will be a conversation about revisiting a decision that was made last week. I'll bring that up when we come back in the final segment on this Monday morning on 1620 The Zone.
It's week 3 of the 25K 4-quarter pick'em. If you're subscribed to 1620 The Email, you can make your picks today. starting in 17 minutes, 10 a.m. There's still time. Head to 1620thezone.com/1620, the email to sign up while you still have a chance. And remember, tie comes down to who entered their picks first. Get signed up right now, 1620thezone.com/1620, the email.
All right, 2 Monday night games tonight. That's why they call them Monday Night Football, because they're played on a Monday. Jacksonville and Buffalo. That is ESPN. I think that's a 6:30 kick.
Uh-huh.
And then ABC is the LSU quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels against Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. Neither one of these games are.
That's an appealing game.
Yes. Can we just do? Can we switch that? Put Bills, Bengals, switch teams, and then Jags, Commanders could play on. The WB.
No one wants to see the Jags and the Commanders.
No,
ever.
Okay. You know what's very appropriate too is the Bears play the Jaguars in London in 2 weeks at 8:30 a.m. Very appropriate spot.
On Prime. Let's complete the whole package.
It's going to be on Tubi.
Why 2 Monday night games tonight?
I don't know.
Because that's just what we need.
Because you know what
usually
we'll
get that right out of the gate.
So what we'll get is more of the Peyton Manning commercials.
Yep.
Are people tired of that commercial yet?
You love those, don't you? You love that one, don't you?
I actually kind of like the commercial, but I can see that it might be wearing on people.
Is Peyton just wearing on people?
I don't
You
know.
say the same about Mahomes. He's in every commercial. They need to combine forces.
Hey, by the way, his acting's getting better.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, but the best actor athlete right now, Devontae Adams.
Well, can we lump coaches in?
Athlete.
I mean, Dan Campbell was an athlete.
Athlete.
Okay.
Dan Campbell's still an athlete.
Dan Campbell's is the best.
He is.
But I
Let's
can see how people might be, 3 weeks in to the NFL season, be tired of that commercial. I kind of like that commercial. It still makes me chuckle.
It is funny.
It also makes me chuckle to see what they did with him at Neyland Stadium last night.
Last night?
Mm-hmm.
No, last night on Sunday night?
On Sunday night.
No, I didn't see this one.
So Morgan Wallen just had a weekend concerts.
He threw a chair.
And but he might go to jail for like 6 months.
How about that? Johnny Cash, the Folsom album.
I'm just kidding.
So he walked out with, let's see, Brew McCoy, Heupel, I think Nico, and then Peyton Manning.
Damn.
So have you seen the trend of Morgan Wallen's concerts? Like when he has his walkout?
Yeah, the walkout.
It'll be a
and
celebrity.
Yeah. And then it's like a tunnel walk thing.
So Peyton Manning was in full Tennessee uniform.
Probably looks exactly the same as he did in 97.
Unitas did that when he got his jersey retired in 1977.
So it was pretty funny.
Riggins did that
is
once.
funny. That is very, very funny.
Riggins wasn't full uniform.
I'm assuming they knew each other before, but remember that relationship was either originated or rekindled here in Omaha at the College World Series. Peyton and Morgan Wallen sitting right next to each other and being buds. You remember that, don't you? Yeah, they were hanging out. I'm assuming they probably met before that.
No Tony V? Seems like he would have
he was there on Friday night. They walked out with the baseball team.
Nice. Yeah. I could see Tony V being a big he'd be a good hype man for Morgan Wallen.
So Joel has done the math here.
Thank you, Joel.
Nebraska kicking in one-score games. 2018, they were 9 of 12. 19, 7 of 11. 28 of 10. 21, 6 of 9. 22, 6 of 9. 23, 6 of 8. This year, the one game, Friday night, 1 of 2. So overall, in one-score games, Nebraska's field goal kicking is at 70%. And remember the stat I recited earlier.
Good in college algebra.
The last 3 years, Nebraska's kickers are 24 of 38. That's 63%.
God. So the best number that you gave in all of those one-score games, they missed at least 2.
Yep.
Other than last Saturday.
Yep. So there's a stigma that Friday could have started to erase. But there's also something happened on Friday. And Alex brought this up, and he makes a good point. And we were kind of championing this cause. And now we might have to think differently about it because we're now into the groove of the season. It's going to be week number 5. He says, another thing that needs to stop, especially in Big Ten play, stop the mass subbing. Play your best players. Illinois line was abusing the second and third teamers on the D line. Now, Nebraska in the first 3 weeks on defense have played a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And you could go, whoa, that's a great luxury to have. I agree as you get into conference play, you're going to pare it down a little bit more. But the biggest thing that I thought about in subbing on Friday night, and I think it's a fair question to ask today if the media are assembled in front of Matt Rule, are you going to rethink redshirting Riley Van Poppel? Because Ty and Nash are good, but the drop-off from your starting defensive lineman to your second group of defensive linemen is pretty abrupt. But Riley Van Poppel is your third best defensive lineman. And now you've made the decision to redshirt him. I was okay with the reasoning, but then I watched another physical team have their way in the interior where they wash out Nash, they take care of Ty. Because you don't want the lineman getting onto the second level, you have to move Bullock outside.
Yep.
And then you can't have Nash and Ty. They aren't built to play 65, 70 snaps. You take a step back. Van Poppel, you weren't taking a step back. I wonder if at any point they thought about revisiting that.
And I mean, you can. Obviously, you could revisit that too. This was the thing that, if I remember correctly, last year when they got into Big Ten play, they did, and you just pointed that out as far as paring it down. I believe they did as they got into conference play and as they got into October last year. Obviously there were some injuries that were hampering Cam Lenhart a little bit as well. But to see anything from this group, the thing that I loved about the rotation is you just didn't see much of a drop-off. And I remember even that last year, that was kind of the impressive thing about when they would rotate in and they would sub in and you get some younger guys in, that there wasn't this big drop-off. That it's a fair observation right now where I'm a huge Cam Lenhart fan. I don't think he's taken the major step forward that we thought he would. Still think he's going to be a very good player. And the one guy that, as excited as I was about Cam Lenhart as a young guy going into year two, I was probably, and I think everybody was more excited about Riley Van Poppel as far as going into year two and being able to be that type of dude where, again, you don't have any real drop-off when you have to sub those guys out. Because this was a conversation that I was having with Vers before the UNI game, and we were talking about exactly that, of some of the things that Tony White does. And, Vers, and again, I don't want to make it sound like nobody is, I think we're all still very high on Tony White. One of the things that he really liked about Tony White was that development, and Terrence Knight as well, that development of the defensive line, that when you rotate, you weren't seeing those guys. Then you had your dudes that were extremely fresh there in the fourth quarter. But by doing so, by sacrificing a couple of series here and there, you weren't losing anything. And now that teams are finding some different ways to expose Nebraska, especially in stopping the run, here as we've seen now in the last week, that it really does come into play of, how do you want to rotate? And if you do have a guy like Riley Van Poppel, who you feel is going to be as seamless of a transition as possible, can't you just say, you know what? Sorry, man, we need you. And I'm assuming at this point, Riley Van Poppel has bought into, okay, this is my plan. This is how I'm going to develop. But at some point, can you sit there and say, hey, man?
Yeah, there's another thing Nebraska has to revisit. I think the quote that Rule used about the defense of, are we calling the right plays for the personnel we have? Because Nebraska was able to make a living in the first 2 weeks just rushing 3 or 4. Now you've played two stout offensive lines, and you played an Illinois offensive line that clearly wore you down and wore 2 of your veteran defensive tackles down. Does Nebraska this week revisit of creating havoc that let's mix it up, let's confuse people, and let's not stick with, let's just rush 3 or 4 and drop 7. Let's be creative. Let's start over like we did last year, and let's get to the quarterback with some creativity that speeds things up for the guy that's standing in the pocket. Haven't been able to do that last 2 weeks because they thought, well, we'll just rush with 3 or 4. It's time to dial it up and cause confusion, cause havoc. The havoc numbers the last 2 weeks have been very minimal.
And so when they did that last year, there was that part of it, and now we've seen it in 2 weeks in a row where teams have tried to quick pass Nebraska to death on top of running the football. That, if I remember, a lot of this with exotic blitzes or just bringing pressure in different areas that even with the quick passing game that you were getting lanes clogged, you were getting guys with hands in the air. So you were, even if you weren't getting home, you're still knocking the football away. You're still getting at the quarterback to where those lanes aren't necessarily as easy to see. Now, obviously good quarterbacks, more better skill position players, they're going to be able to adjust. But that's the beauty of that type of defensive scheme, is how you want to go about who's actually coming, who's staying back. And then if you're starting to send guys at the linebacking position, where are they coming from? Again, it's trying to get a feel for that. If I remember that last year, though, that was the one thing that when they would get home, it wasn't necessarily they were getting to the quarterback, but they were knocking footballs away. They were creating that type of sense of urgency for a quarterback, to where you're not just, two-step zinging it all over the place, like what Illinois, especially with what Altmaier did on Friday night.
All right. Thanks everybody that contributed today. Our guests, Ben, Evan, Jacob. Missed any segments? They're up on the radio replay page. Matt Rule speaks later this morning. Some thoughts post-Illinois. Maybe some thoughts on what Bielema said about Nebraska. Essentially, they just wore Nebraska down, which, if you got eyes, you could see that in the second half. So what will be the adjustments Nebraska gets ready for Purdue? We'll react to what Matt Rule says later today. Crossovers coming up next for Jimmy, for Nick. I'm Gary. We'll see you in 20 hours. Another edition of Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620.